This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Rounds down, just 2 to go for the Major Series European split. Today, though, it's one of the most challenging events on the entire schedule. We're at Mount Panorama Circuit this evening for the Bathurst 500, one of the most challenging races and road courses in all of iRacing. And you're about to see it from green flag to checker flag here on RaceBot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Justin Prince alongside Cam Walsh. Director today is Paul Smith as we get ready for racing here at this 3.8-mile circuit, 6.1 kilometers the distance, with a track temperature of 95 degrees, air temp 71. Cam, it's a very challenging racetrack today at Mount Panorama Circuit, and what has been a dominant season for Christian Challenger. What are you expecting heading into one of the most difficult tracks in all of iRacing this afternoon?
Well, it's hard because I'd like to say chaos because that's what you would expect. You would expect this to be difficult. You would expect it to be hard. These V8 supercars, it's basically the Australian equivalent of a stock car, of a NASCAR stock car. They're similar enough. It's difficult, it's hard, and I would expect there to be drama. But the problem is that these drivers are good. They always practice. They always are prepared for the challenge of having a unique car on a unique circuit that they might not be used to driving. So I really don't know if that's what we're going to see.
Well, right now the championship picture at the top of the driver's standings has been near dominated by Christian Challenger from the drop of the green flag in the spring. 4,485 points entering today. Over top his teammate Matthias Magnussen. However, there could be drama for second on back still because Magnussen, Krum, Hiskinen all within the same 100th of a points total, along with Jonas Pudiklis, along with Joshua Wolf, I should rather say, and Travis Henderson. All of that is still up in the air for about 2nd to 7th in the standings at least. We could still see a lot of shuffling behind Challenger in that points total here, Cam.
Oh, most definitely. I think Christian Challenger has a pretty good lock on the front of the championship standings here, especially after last month's domination in Milwaukee. But I think for me, there's just so much more of this championship to go with. Basically everyone in the lower top 5 is completely right next to each other as far as the points go, and then there's still the team standings to do.
Exactly. The team standings up on screen as well. Kinetic Europe is on top of those standings right now, but teams like Grizzly Motorsports have been showing good speed throughout the year. Bombshell Motorsports in the top 3. The Can-Am Racing is in 4th position. Rounding up the top 5, as you can see up on your screen, with a total of 9,872 points. That is Total Dorm Force Racing Europe, Tour Freak Racing, CQR Club, And the drivers rounding out the grid, the Apex Racing Group, along with Unorthodox, as well as Boosted Motorsports. So there's been some strong performances by a lot of these teams, especially we've seen not just from Kinetic, but as mentioned, a lot of those top 10 teams this year.
Yeah, and they're all here and out in force again today. And I think maybe Milwaukee is a bit of an outlier. It's an oval. It's as somebody just decides to do some practice donuts in the pit lane there. It's you've got everyone basically here, whereas maybe for Milwaukee, people decided, all right, I'm not going to be that great of it. Bathurst, I mean, V8 supercars, it's certainly not what you would consider a European series, but it is a very popular series in Europe.
The thing is, though, here at this track, if you remember back to the iRacing Bathurst 1000, that distance was the full 161 laps for the real world equivalent. There was the chance for a lot of carnage, especially at Griffin's Bend as well as at the top of the hill. That is the stretch from Skyline in turn 11 all the way down to about turn 17. This is a tough track to not just avoid any bodywork damage because of all the elevation changes here, but it's to stay out of trouble with just 81 laps the distance today.
Yeah, most definitely. And the other thing is that trouble can sometimes just reach out and find you anywhere going up or down the mountain. The track is so narrow, because it's a public road, that any time that somebody has another incident, it really can just completely block the track.
Drivers are all set to go for the grid. They have been qualifying for the past week to set their starting positions for today's race. Track position could be key, and the man who's going to control that track position today is all set to go. That is Christian Challenger, who will start on the pole today alongside Tim Claessens. In row number 2 this afternoon, it'll be Joshua Wolf in the 3rd position, alongside Travis Henderson to round out the top 4. Kirk Crumb's in 5th position, with Michael Lane starting in 6th position. He's one of the faster cars in practice. Gabriel Roos starts in 7th, with Riley Thompson looking to get some consistency to end up the campaign in 8th. Adam Passiponti in 9th, and Eudalis Putaklis rounds out the top 10 here, Cam.
Yeah, most definitely. And outside of that, it goes to pretty much everyone that we know that isn't really doing that great today. It seems to be in the V8 supercars. You've got Philip Lake sitting way back, Enrico Lionheart starting in 19th. David Bakers is back in 20th. I'm seeing Jean-Francois Arsenal, who's typically pretty fast, in 24th, Cordell Cologne in 23rd. So we not only have all of our fast guys up front, we got the lights out and the engines roaring. We're underway for the Bathurst 500 for the European split for the Major Series. And quickly, the car's already off and away to turn number 1. Christian Challenger off to a good jump. Already, Tim Claessens and Joshua Wolf up to 2nd and 3rd in the Torque Freak machines as they go their way up the mountain straight. Everybody just about single file line following Christian Challenger as they head their way up to Griffin's Bend. It is the only 2 wide that I'm seeing here is from Philip Lake back, who has jumped to 10th position, or he's still in 10th position. It seems everyone wants to be nice and careful here as they go up for the first time.
Yeah, the cutting, a very dangerous corner. We've seen many drivers in these cars, especially in the Bathurst 1000, for iRacing, hit those walls, especially as well once they pass by the parks. Passing by McPhilmy Park now as they work their way towards Skyline. This is one of the worst places to get into an incident, though, around this 11 through turn 17 complex, where there's not a lot of runoff space, and you're basically starting to work your way down the hill hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And these V8 supercars, they are really at the extent of everything that they can do as far as the suspension, as far as the tires go, as when you're going up past McPhilmy Park and down Skyline, down the Dipper. Here we are on through Forest's Elbow here for the first time, and Christian Challenger are still unchallenged as they work themselves out through the Conrad Straight.
Conrad Straight, the longest straightaway on this circuit, all the way down to the chase. The draft going to be very important here. one of the two main passing opportunity straights. Saving fuel though is Klaas's as he lets up midway down the straightaway. Still stays within the draft though of Challoner. And that's going to be crucial for these drivers. Already you see a train of about 6 drivers. One of them just went off the track. Gabriel Ruz has just spun out on the last part of the chase from 6th position. More cars are squealing and trying to go to the grass. A second one just joined him, and Enrico Lionheart. Let's take a look at Ruz as he drops all the way outside of the top 15.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out whereabouts that started. Was that just a braking overhead? And actually, Gabriel Ruz just ended up taking a bite out of Cordell Cologne, but Cordell Cologne has managed to get himself straightened out as the very final corner, and Cordell Cologne gives his car a big wiggle to make sure it's all right. I was wanted to look at the replay, of course, but it's a bit difficult when they're still racing hard. But yeah, for Gabriel Ruz, I mean, this is going to be troublesome because not only are you going to have are you having an incident early on, but you're going to have a faster driver sitting well back in the pack that's going to have to try to work his way through traffic.
And I was just getting to the point where you want to have track position here. You want to keep up with this man, Christian Challoner. That is Tim Klaas within the draft. They're already pulling away, though, from Joshua Wolf and Kurt Crum a little bit. Their first laps were in the 209s to 210s as they still get their way up to speed here. So that could be very crucial. Ruz is all the way back in 19th position now from that incident.
Yeah, and that is just way far back. I mean, the amount of traffic he is going to have to work through if he wants to get back to where he was. I mean, I would almost start considering, you're going to have to start changing your pit strategy whenever the time comes up. But either way, the rest of the field still running strong outside of that.
And we just had some trouble for Troy Anderson. This was in, I believe it was around still the 20s, and bam, he hits the wall. And that causes severe suspension damage, as you can see, struggling to turn the car after the hit.
Oh, definitely. That is a very common incident. That was right at, I think, McPhillamy Park. No, that was at Solomon Park. Basically, the exit to the going up and the beginning of the going down. There's a very brief straight line there, and you've got to maximize your speed. And unfortunately, he managed to go. He maximized the speed a little bit too much, and had an incident there. He'll have to take the tow, which is going to be the difficult part. But once he does that, he will have the fast repair that he will have to do. But I'm just looking back here at 15th position on back. Some very, very heavy fighting as they're working their way through Hell Corner.
Yeah, they're really fighting as they work their way down off the pit straight, but the timing and scoring is up at racebot.tv/timing for today's event. Meanwhile, someone's about to use their fast repair because Jared Morgan ran into the wall coming through the chase. You'll see this on the replay, was in about the 20s at the time, and then tries to take that arc. Might have taken a little bit too hard into the left-hander, as you'll see right about here. Ends up locking up. Tries to avoid the wall, slips in the grass, slams the barrier, and takes the fast repair. There is a fast repair today for these drivers. That's in part why, along with the 62 incident point limit.
Yeah, it looks like he had everything under control, everything all wrapped up, and then just trying to get back onto the racetrack without impeding anybody. Ended up staying in the grass a little bit too long, and just the tail skipped out on him there. So unfortunate for Jared Morgan, but you know what? It's almost a little bit all right, simply because now you have your own space to run your own race, which I would prefer, but obviously I'm sure people who want to race do in fact really want to be in that traffic. And I will say, unlike Milwaukee, Justin, where Christian Challoner pulled away, we have the 451 car of Tim Klaassen sitting there in second position, and he is right behind Challoner. And I'm going to say, if he's going to continue to be this way, we might have a very interesting race, as Joshua Wolf and Kurt Crum look like they're going to go side by side into the final corner.
Yeah, that and P3 actually just went back single file. You see the two drivers trying to save off one another, but Wolf leading the second tandem of drivers. Kurt Crum is in fourth. Fifth spot is Travis Henderson. But one of the main things we see here on these road courses and what we're seeing right now is drivers trying to save fuel. There is a lot of pit stops you will have to take here at this circuit because of how big it is. Somewhere, forget the exact total we've seen for the 1,000 kilometer distance, but it's going to be a lot. However, Crum wanting to attack Wolf, knowing the time being lost, can't make the pass work. They're about a second off the lead group. Henderson takes advantage to move up to fourth.
Yeah, and that was a good maneuver right there. It's sometimes you got to take the moves as they happen. Just this entire front pack is really exciting for me because we still have one as we're getting the replay right now. You're seeing how Kurt Crum was able to had his rear slip out on him there, and that allowed Travis Henderson to get right on by. And that's one of the Grizzly cars, and really we didn't see any of the Grizzly cars do exceptionally well last month on the oval Lotus 49, but here they are running very quickly up front here, and hopefully they can keep that on rolling because the Grizzlies really needed a good points haul at Milwaukee. They didn't get it, so they're going to need a good points haul here at the Mount Panorama Circuit.
It's been confirmed 3 stops are scheduled for today for these drivers in total, so this is going to keep on rolling along for the cars today. See though, Kloss is trying to save fuel because fuel mileage and strategy can be so important. Just a 1/10 of a second off last time. Much quicker rather was Klossen's. Again though, not wanting to pounce too early. The gap between them and third spot has already grown to 3.3 seconds though with the pace they're running. They're in the 207s to 208s in lap times here, Cam, so far. 209s on back for third.
Yeah, and Jared Morgan is bringing his car back into pit lane. Not sure if anything's happened. The car looks all right, though he stopped at the front end of pit lane, so not sure what problem that 96 car has, but the rest of the field will go on by. Either way, Christian Chalner is still our leader. Tim Klassens is running in second, and Joshua Wolf is kind of broken away a little bit from Travis Henderson in third, Justin, and it's still just a long string of cars we would normally expect to see at a tighter circuit. As Gabriel Roos is pulling his car in, he has managed to damage the entire right front of his car.
Yeah, right now, remember, he had troubles on the first lap from the top 6, but somewhere on the top of the hill, while trying to deal with the Grizzly cars, ended up severely damaging his right side. That leads to his fast repair being used in the early going. That was just on his 4th lap of what is 76 to go this time by for the leaders here. Still a ways to go. And it's so easy to cause some type of body damage. You'll see these drivers in some cases bend up some of their doors along the bottom side because you're having so many hard elevation changes and so many hits to the bottom of the suspension as you run your way up and down the hills.
Yeah, it certainly can happen if you don't have the car set up. What can easily happen also is you really try to hit your steering wheel at a certain time when you're going down the dipper. And what can actually happen is you can really just drive your driver door into the little outside wall there, into the inside wall there as you're trying to flick, that's the word I was looking for, flick the steering wheel around the dipper. And that can certainly happen when you're trying to keep your momentum up, when you're trying to keep your speed up, because if you don't get that bite, what ends up happening is you certainly can wash out and hit the outside wall opposite of the dipper exit. And we'll probably see that, I'm sure, at some point or another. But I will say Christian Chalner is getting a lot of pressure from Tim Klassens under braking. I almost wonder if Tim's a little bit more comfortable under braking, or alternatively, Justin, he's just able to use the brake points that Chalner is using as the leader and do that just a little bit lesser. So he closes right on in, but here he is sucked up right behind the Kinetic Racing, and he's actually going to make a challenge for the lead going into the second corner.
Klassens wants to take the lead away, does so, makes the pass on Challenger, our first lead change of the day. And Klassens had been the faster of the two cars, actually, while trying to stay in the draft and saving fuel at the end of the Conrad straight. So now it's going to be the question, can Klassens pull away now from Challenger? Both of these drivers have set the tempo in the field at second quicker a lap as Clausens has already grown the gap to about 4 car lengths.
Yeah, and that's pretty normal through these sections. It's going to be down the Conrad is when you really see just how much of a gap that he has. They're going their way down here as working their way. This is they were just heading past McPhilmy Park. Now they're just ending the Skyline. They're going down here. Here's the Dipper, where you certainly can ding up your left front. And now this is where we're probably going to see, once we clear Forest Elbow, just how much of a gap Tim Claessens was able to get. And really, it's really not that much. And that's probably why these drivers really love Bathurst so much, is simply due to the fact that not only is it such a driver versus track duel, but when you're in these situations, the racing is always so close, and then everything can always be brought up back by the Conrad Straight.
Yes, indeed. You can see how much of a pull that Tom Challenger gets, but lifts because, well, he has to try and save a little bit. More cars having trouble, though. One of the Fords with a big situation. That's the 74 Sam Watley. That's one of the Grizzly cars that had some trouble up the hillside.
Yeah. And, actually, yeah, this is a multi-car incident here. I wonder what that black car was, but yeah, the Stefan Wang ended up. It looks like he got sideways, got a little loose, and he ended up having an issue. I'm not sure if he had any help in that, as it doesn't look like he did at all. No, he didn't at all. And once that happened, it just piled up. And just like I talked about in the beginning there, that can happen instantly. Somebody goes a little bit sideways, and the next thing you know, you've got a pile up.
Third driver that got involved in that, by the way, was Michael Lane. He no longer has a hood and severe left front bumper damage from that incident, but it's so easy to do that at this racetrack here. Fourth spot, though, we're following along with Travis Henderson. He's been staying in the second group. They're not as quick as the lead group, we should know, but Henderson has been looking pretty decent today. We've seen him make the pass on Kirk Crum when he tried to take advantage of a move in the Griffin's Bend, but right now he's still applying the pressure to Wolf, letting him run a little bit into the first part of the technical corners here in Sector 2. But again, we'll see that time reel itself back in down the straightaway.
Yeah, and I did see what happened with Stefan Wang. He actually hit the wall with his driver's side door, and that actually is what basically stopped his car and threw the tail around. So it wasn't so much as he lost the rear as much as he hit the wall, as I see Corbin Solemson in pit lane with some right front damage. And Enrico Leinhardt is still on pit lane, and his car doesn't appear to be damaged, but he might that might be the result of a tow and just waiting, or no, he might have just brought that down pit lane.
For Leinhardt's case, who was looking for a top 50 points finish on the season, he actually did pull the tow truck because he was stuck in the middle of the racetrack. Wolf is meanwhile off in the grass. The third place car overruns the chase, and another mistake by a top 10 runner. That's the second driver we've seen today already. The arrow, including Morgan, just get too late on the brake and bobble to the right into the chase.
Yeah, and meanwhile, while that was going, Christian Chandler was able to pull to the inside between Hell Corner and down Mountain Straight, and he was able to retake the lead. And Joshua Wolf, thankfully, he only lost 2 positions to Kurt Crum and Travis Henderson, and Kurt Crum's running onto the inside of Travis Henderson. He wants that position going into Quarry Bend.
You see that view of Wolf as he gets onto the racetrack. The 2 positions go right on by on the left side, so move him back. But as you mentioned, Challenger making the pass down the pit straight, heading into Hell Corner after Clausen took a bit of a wider exit out of Murray's corner. That got him the lead as the cars try and bobble around for third on back at the moment, as you see that train still up on your screen. Here's the biggest movers and losers so far inside the top 12. The biggest mover in the top 12, a quiet plus 10 for Vila. Ido Vila in the 535 with the decent run so far, currently gaining a lot of time in his car, while the biggest losers, Lane minus 17 now. Reinhardt, as mentioned, down 3 positions still in the pits, and a bunch of others that have had some struggles so far. But that 535, as mentioned, has quietly taken advantage of the attrition up to 12.
Well, not only that, but I'm looking at his lap times here. His last lap was a 2:09.798. Actually, it was the lap previous to this one. And I'm looking at all the fastest laps of the drivers behind him, and not a single one of them was able to go into a 2:09, except for Michael Lane, who is carrying a significant amount of damage, at least to me. The number 62 car, it looks like that car has been through the ripper, so something has happened to the 62 car.
Remember, that was the car that was involved in that chain reaction incident with Lane.
Yep.
Peterson has also just had trouble in the 7 car. So more drivers having early attrition. This was the 16th place car. So the no emission motorsports driver. Bad run out of the corner. And bye-bye car.
Got cleaned up there by somebody, so that looks like that was Cordell Cologne who cleaned him up. Doesn't look like his Holden Cordell Cologne got any damage, but Thomas Pedersen there, well, now he doesn't have a rear wing, so I'd almost think that maybe the car is faster. He's now more of a stock car.
Yeah, but we talked about the more drivers having troubles. Well, here's another one. Andreas Robertson with some trouble, the 21st place car for TDR. So more drivers are now continuing to have problems. He's going to now get a chance to fight with the last driver that had issues. This is the reason why he had them. And that's not what you want to do.
Yeah, well, you know what, though, if you are going to have an incident, it's not a bad one to have, though it does look like he picked up some right front damage from that tire wall. At the same time, it doesn't look like the car is in that out of shape. The suspension looks all right, and Andreas Robertson seems to be planted. But yeah, now we've got an interesting damage. Ooh, we even have a marker of death on our screen. That's fantastic. But we've got a car with no spoiler chasing a car with missing a front fender. So you never know. Now we're turning it into more of a production car series.
The thing is, I've asked about that before in the Bathurst 1000. Apparently that damage without the wing doesn't affect him. So that's going to be something to watch. By the way,
what's happened to Joshua Wolf?
Joshua Wolf with a technical issue has just dropped out of the top 10, so that is going to be unfortunate for the Torque Freak driver, so he is now off the track. Rough day in the office, to say the least. Meanwhile, the battle for 6 is starting to heat up as everyone fights for some pens and paper. Philip Lake wants P6, can't make the dive yet on Utilus Pudiclus.
Yeah, I don't think that's the first time that's happened with Joshua Wolf. I think this has been an ongoing issue that's been plaguing him, and that's really unfortunate. It makes me it's always tough when you're doing a great job at the racing circuit, especially a difficult one like Bathurst, and situations outside of your control end up causing you to have to drop. But either who, this battle up front, as strong as it is going, it is continuing to advance forward, and as such, at some point, I would say probably 4 or 5 laps from now, they might have to start contending with some lap traffic from all of these cars that get damaged. They come into pit lane and then they come out.
Yeah, well, especially as how many cars have already taken quick repairs. By the way, Link on your screen has just made the pass there, so shuffle him up 1 position. Link is slowly on the move, +5 on the race, and the 210s just about 2 seconds a lap off the leader. So the tire wear starting to kick in a little bit for these cars. Still has to work his way forward. Well, 1 car's going backward. Patrick Neese in the top 3 in the sportsman point standings, having a rough race. He started in 31st and got into 28th, but as you can see on your replay, loses it under braking and goes across the racetrack and takes a long while to get back going. He had been going forward before losing that grip and locking up those brakes on the entry into Marie's corner.
Yeah, and Patrick was running back in the 28th position, or no, not back in the 28th position. He was well up ahead of that. He was 26th. When that happened, he had already been carrying a little bit of front-end damage, but yeah, just going over that curbing, saw the car was locking up, reacted to it, and the car just really got sent over the curbs and got to see a lovely picture of the underside of that Holden, but which certainly can damage your car. And now we're getting to the point where there is quite a few walking wounded, as it were, out on the Bathurst circuit.
We actually just seen, as that replay was going on, another car, Courtyard Cologne, had some damage and gone back and forth with Lyndon Swaby for 16th. They're still going, though. Henderson, though, one of the cars looking healthy. As you look at those unhealthy cars, back to said healthy cars, with Crum trying to pick up time in the 777 machine. Currently looking okay, that Bombshell Motorsports machine. Crum very strong today in the early going. Still 8 seconds, though, to the race leaders.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at... I'm just looking at the numbers going through. I'm looking at Philip Lake right now, who is running in 6th position. Now, of course, some of this has been through attrition, but really, that 863 has been just doing some really great laps. His fastest lap was a 2:08.3, which, while not as fast as, say, some of the other cars in front of him, like Joshua Wolf, who has reconnected but is now 1 lap down, which is unfortunate to drop down to 29th. He certainly has got the speed to keep himself rolling forward in case anyone else has an issue. So Philip Blake is looking to be one of those movers as well.
Blake, by the way, will have to deal with some traffic. The car just in front of him, Joshua Wolf, who, remember, had the technical issue, is now back on the racetrack in 29th. A lap down. So Wolf not in a great position. Will have a bit of a trap, though. As we look back towards the race lead again, Clausen's been keeping up the pressure on Challenger, has been saving fuel behind him. Still about at least 10 to 15 laps from the pit window, but the more he stays behind Challenger and lifts down that Conrad straight as he's been doing, the more he helps his situation and to stretch that fuel window, where Challenger, he's been in clean air most of this run and burning more fuel.
Yeah, and these guys have been trading back and forth, so they want the lead. But that, of course, comes with the reality of using more fuel, which, of course, means that your pit stop's going to be longer coming into the pit lane. We got to remember, these are V8 supercars. These things are gas hogs, no matter how big of a fuel tank you have, which I think is somewhere in the ballpark of 29 and a half gallons is what I can see here. So they have a large fuel tank, but these things use an absolute inordinate amount of fuel as they run themselves around the panorama circuit.
At the same time, though, we've seen how many races on the endurance side, whether it's been in the major series or whether it's been at the special event / the top stage levels, how crucial it is to be able to have an optimal pit window to even stretch that extra couple laps or so. In some major events, we've even seen drivers be able to cut an extra pit stop down by just staying behind someone in these kind of stints.
Yeah, absolutely, and being able to plan that out is better as well. You got to take what you can get, certainly, but being able to plan this stuff out is good. And if you're Christian Challenger, he knows what's up. What ends up happening, he knows that he's going to be ending up losing the fuel race, so the pit stop is going to come through as here comes that 451 of Clausen's on the inside going down Conrad straight. He's going to be able to take the inner apex away from our leader, Christian Challenger, and he's going to end up having the position. No, he's not. He's going to overbrake, and he's going to have to snap that car out and reposition himself in there, as Christian Challenger now has a much larger gap going into lap number 13.
And that's not what Tim wanted there at all with that. Another driver overrunning the first part of the chase today. And now it's a 1.6 second gap between him and Challenger and keeps him just outside the draft. Behind them, Kurt Crum and Travis Henderson. They're still about 8 seconds back from that mistake, but they're still scrapping out a little bit and have now pulled away from Riley Thompson, Philip Lake, and the rest of their group.
Yeah, and we did start with pretty hefty groups that had themselves through here, as I almost just saw Tim Clausen's almost just lost it, irrelevant to what we're talking about here, but yeah, Tim, he's really hustling his cart.
And Henderson nearly lost his car that time in Griffin's Bend.
I almost wonder if maybe the tires are what is starting to go here, and that's why we're starting to see these cars doing some slipping and sliding here, as it is Travis Henderson currently in that 4th position just behind Kurt Crum. These cars they seem to be getting livelier and livelier, and I think that's because the fuel load is burning off, so the car is getting lighter, and the tire wear is getting to the point that they're going to need to come into pit lane and start getting themselves some tires. And yeah, also something that we didn't really get to talk about here, the track temperature. It's a nice, clear, sunny day. There's not a cloud in the sky that I can see, and so that sun is beating down on this track, Justin.
Yeah, it's gone up to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about a +9 from the practice session these drivers were trying to get acquainted with. And the local time is still at 10:09 a.m. in the sim, meaning in these next few hours or so, that temperature might get higher and higher and higher and might be more difficult for these cars to handle, especially in the corners, with it being much more slicker.
Yeah, you might want to almost start looking at when you're coming into the pit stop, seeing if you can do maybe a tire pressure adjustment or something along those lines. But for Riley Thompson right now in 5th position, he is getting hustled by Joshua Wolf as Joshua Wolf dives to the inside line. We're looking at a replay.
Claude Belval having some trouble. Meanwhile, the 22nd place now car hits the inside wall. This is another car having trouble in the Griffin's Bend. Takes a little bit for the Can-Am racing machine to get back going, but nearly got T-boned.
Yeah, I got that thing looped around. I almost wonder if he stalled the thing, which I don't really think is a thing unless you intentionally want that to happen, sort of thing. But yeah, maybe he was just getting himself reoriented, resituated. But yeah, for Joshua Wolf, he has meanwhile gotten by, and something has happened with Philip Lake, because Joshua Wolf was able to blow by Philip Lake, and Riley Thompson is snooping on the inside there, trying to get around Philip Lake. Putiklis is getting around, or at least trying to, as they're hustling up here. Now you got to remember that number 48 car is not racing for position here, but meanwhile, I think he is trying to at least get his lap back.
Yeah, wants to at least get the best result he can after the technical issues, I think. But the battle is still shaping up, though, a little bit. That was broken up a bit with the draft, but Thompson is trying to hold on to 5th. Lake is now up to 6th. He has already made the pass on Utilus Putiklis at the moment, so these cars are rolling along so far. Remember, though, there is the chance you can stall these cars if your auto clutch isn't set. That is an option for the drivers in iRacing, and that might have been the possibility for one of the cars there. One car into the pit lane, though, as it's the 812 machine of Cordell Cologne. We mentioned him having some troubles once before. Has even bigger troubles this time.
Yeah, it hits the outside wall and then just bounces, pinballs really to the inside wall, and bounces off of that a couple of times, and I think that that's going to be potentially it for him, simply because I think that Cordell Cologne might have used his quick repair earlier, but if not, it might have been one of the other Grizzly cars, but if not, he's still going to be dropped down because he has to take the tow.
Should note Jared Morgan's already pulled his car into the garage area, so that would be one of the first DNFs of the race today. Well, Cologne is still inside that pit lane. I don't believe he used that quick repair yet. But still following along with Philip Blake as he tries to move himself up the grid. Car's a bit more slippery behind him. Putiklis just lost the back end coming out of Hell Corner. But they are still trying to use Wolf as a bit of a drafting help, especially Riley Thompson in that TDR machine, getting a big-time pull from the Torque Freak Racing machine in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're Joshua Wolf, I mean, it's kind of almost unfortunate in a sense that you managed to go out, you've rejoined the racetrack, and you've managed to rejoin the racetrack right in the top 5. So you have really hot and heavy competition rather than, say, open track to really work yourself through here. Now, let's be honest here. There's no cautions. There's no safety car periods. So for Joshua Wolf, the possibility of regaining that lap isn't going to happen. However, you want to be able to finish the best of the rest, as it were, as Joshua Wolf really hustling under pressure here. Basically just did a four-wheel drift going into the Skyline corner there, but either way, as we're going to see a replay of that, you just see the car getting very unsettled, and then he tries to roll through here, and the car just sliding right across, and he had to gather it up right on the brake there, and he just great camera angles that could really show just how much that car was moving there. But you also got to think, Justin, what happens if you're a car that's a lap down, you've been racing with people, and then you end up having an incident, and, well, the top 5 cars behind you end up having an issue as Joshua Wolf, well, pulls off the racetrack.
I don't think that part was intentional going off into the grass, but it gets the job done if you're the lead lap cars here wanting to get by him. So move right on by goes Thompson and Lake so they can focus on the battle for 5th. By the way, that lead, it's shrunken back down to just half a second because Clausen's put in 2 straight laps in the 2:08 to get back within the draft to Christian Challenger. You can see that gap on your screen. Kurt Krum, though, is 11 seconds behind him in the 7:77.
Yeah, and Joshua Wolf, no, he's all set, actually. I lied. But this lead battle is continuing here, and for Tim Claessens, we have to remember he ended up trying to pass a couple of laps ago, so he has now closed that radon back up. He's doing slightly faster laps, but really nothing of note, though last lap he did manage to gain some 3/10 just in that last circuit alone. So for Christian Challenger there, I think it's trying to be a good pacing car to hit your numbers. You don't want to abuse your machine too quickly or too early, especially because I feel like we're in the latter half of a green flag run here.
We are right now, indeed, at this point. 65 laps to go for the lead cars this time by. As you look at the times now for Clausen, you can see he gained 8/10, 2/10, and then flattened out once he got out of the draft and started to deal with a bit of traffic. They had to get by Patrick Nice, for example. They had a V-Apex car duck down to the lane as well, heading to the last corner. That lost him a touch bit of time. But Clausen definitely looks like he's got the pace. He's right now just wanting to make sure he's got the strategy to go along with it. Meanwhile, the battle for 5th position has just gone side by side through the chase. Philip Lake takes the position on the outside line, heading to 21 and 22. And Lake had been wanting to get that done for a little while, as you see here on the draft. Able to reel him in down the Conrad straight, and able to get side by side before Thompson gives him the spot.
Yeah, and what can end up happening there is if these cars are being a little bit too cute about it, they certainly can hit each other. Again, these cars really are, as you can see that one snapping out there as they go through Hell's Corner. These cars really are not comfortable, and that's intentional, really, as Joshua Wolf is now hustling Riley Thompson again. But these are stock cars. Somebody is parked it into the barrels there, or the tire barrel. That is David Baker in the race spot car.
That's one of the Grizzly Motorsports machines, actually, too. The 33 ends up getting loose. Another driver struggling with the higher temperatures, under braking, and has to do a full 360 before he falls all the way back to where he's now cycled to 16th position. David H. Baker had been just about outside the top 10 before that spin, so the track temp is going up and up to 107 degrees now. We started in the high 90s at the time of the green lights, just about 17 laps ago.
Yeah, and we have to remember, it's not a bad day temperature-wise. It's 73 degrees out.
Trouble for the 4th-place cars. Patrick Nice just got rear-ended by Kurt Krum as they try to get on by him. As mentioned, traffic is starting to come into play. Krum gave a huge shot to the back end of Patrick Nice.
Yeah, just looking at the replay here, they've come down. This is the dipper here. They get under power, and I think he almost was going to move over to let them by, but unfortunately, Kurt Krum was just coming on too quickly, and I think that was just a bit of a miscommunication there. But now that Holden of Kurt Krum does have some front end damage, and that certainly could allow Travis Henderson to pull on up and maybe start challenging here for the third position.
And that just continues what has been a rough race for Nice now that no longer has a back end. But at the moment, that's going to help out the battle closing in behind them. Lake is trying to reel them in, only about a second and a half back. Krum still trying to hold on with now some aerodynamic damage on the front end, while Travis Henderson is already staying within that draft. Clausen though has retaken the race lead, this time by through Griffin's Bend.
Yeah, and it does look like he is going to get it, and not only get it, but manage to get himself a big leap ahead of it. So I almost think that Christian Chalnier, this wasn't like a reactionary move here. He went out way early, and Christian Chalnier just ended up, he just washed right on out, which is, of course, what always happens there, because you got to remember, the rubber does not get placed down on that outside line, and so he ended up having to just kind of whoa up the ponies just a little bit more than he would have liked, and now it's Christian Chalnier with a slight gap between him and the leader of Tim Claessens. But if you're Christian Chalnier now, it's almost like a good thing, like a relief, because now you get to be the one that's saving the fuel as he's going to chase on down. But as we see Mike Gaunt here, this is of course going through the chase and heading your way towards Murray's Corner under the Armor All pedestrian bridge, and Mike Gaunt getting under braking. Does he clip the grass? No. Does he clip the inside barrier? No. He washes out on the exit, hits the curbing and the dirt there, and parks into the Super Cheap Auto sponsorship wall. And he tried to get himself packed up. Somebody, the 404 car, gets around there, but nope, he gets himself cleaned up and back on track without his hood.
And the reason, in part, that he's going to keep on chugging on and not go, to the pit lane as well. One, they were right past the pit entry box, but two, you're close to the pit window at the moment anyway. Meanwhile, change for position. You see Diego Jimenez Hormilia making the pass, getting passed rather, by Ido Villa. So Villa continues to move his way up the grid, now up to 10th position. That's now plus 12 from the start, but that's 45 seconds back.
Yeah, and I would have to say, maybe just a bad qualifying there, but that is a strong power and car there that he's working right up. Now, Kurt Krum, in his 777, I will say, is now leading a pack. You don't normally get to see this. Normally, everyone kind of spaces out. You have a couple of duels as Travis Henderson just hustles way under stress braking there, going into the second corner there. You've got Kurt Krum in third position, Henderson in fourth, Philip Lake in fifth, Riley Thompson in sixth, and then you do have Joshua Wolf, who, despite being a lap down, is probably faster than all of them. So it's really interesting just how big of a pack that you have here in a basically a street circuit.
Yeah, majority of this circuit is used in public roads on a daily basis when there isn't racing events here at Mount Panorama Circuit. But Kurt Krum still trying to lead this group. It's going to get curious though with this grouping, depending on how they stick together, if they stick together after the pit window, because with the track temperature kicking up and the differences in fuel, that difference of when you duck down to the lane could be very important by the time we reach the second pit stops. And that can really shuffle on these positions if they stay close to one another.
Yeah, and we're just talking about like the track temperature. It's 109 now. The air temperature is only 73. It's the date of when that Bathurst 1000 is happening. So in sim, what you could choose is Kurt Krum now has a car on the inside of Travis Henderson. The 24 has pulled through it. I think we've seen this before from Henderson, where he washes out at the chase, and then they work down towards Murray's Corner, and the 777 now working onto the outside, as that is a non-favorable position position there. Travis Henderson can just close the door. He doesn't, but Kurt Crum pulls it back, and here comes Philip Lake onto the inside, and Riley Thompson trying to chase through, and Thompson will switch to the outside going through Hell Corner. Again, not a position you want to be, but he does manage to make it work because Kurt Crum had to hustle up because of Philip Lake.
A lot of shuffling now in these positions all of a sudden. Henderson now pulls away a little bit. Lake up to fourth. Thompson able to pass by Crump as lap traffic stays on the right side of the racetrack. All the drivers forced to stay single file as Thompson had a bit of wheel hop into the braking. But everyone's staying single file for the time being after going side by side down the pit straight. Gonna get very aggressive in the Conrad straight.
Yeah, and just this battle going on with all of these cars racing for contention is just very, very impressive here. As Mason Marzoff, the 425 car, ended up going just a little bit off. He managed to gather it back up, and he's now safe. But his car is damaged, and I would say that this lead pack car, as we're looking at a replay with Lyndon Swaby here, is something has happened with that number 100 car, the Kinetic Europe machine. As he comes on down into the chase, the car is maneuvering. You can just see how loose these cars are getting, and that means to me that there's only one more place that you can end up wrecking your car, as he has ended up in pit lane, and I am presuming, and then he promptly then wrecked it going into Murray's Corner, as Cordell Colon is still in pit lane, and you can see why he is.
Yeah, he added more damage to the car. Remember, he's used the fast repair already, so the right side of that machine, left side rather, all torn up. We've already had at least 3 DNFs on the day today, by the way. There's a chance that might be DNF number 4, as we still keep an eye on that battle in group number 2. Henderson still trying to hold on to the position. Lake still trying to stay behind. Taking a higher line is Lake. The better run off the corner, able to hold more throttle. That time is Lake, trying to send it hard to the inside of Hell Corner though. Can he hold on to the inside though? Henderson tries to fight, hits him in the left rear, getting loose. Able to save it though, both of them, as Thompson tries to take advantage for 5th.
See, that's something that I absolutely love about these cars. It's basically, you got stock car racing, and these cars can really throw their weight around. These are heavy machines, but you can have situations like that where touches like that, it hasn't ruined anyone's race, and all that's happened is the thing's just gotten exciting. Though there is a slight amount of damage on Travis Henderson's machine, it shouldn't really affect anything. And Philip Lake, who started in the 11th position, has now worked his way up to 3rd. And that has been hard fought, as you've been able to see that here on your screen. And really, it's just absolutely fantastic. Lake's been up 7, and as Justin, you were talking about, Vila's moved up 12 positions. And interestingly enough, Fascia Ponte, for all the maneuvering and all the movement, hasn't moved a single position.
That's been kind of curious that he's been quietly running to the 9th position in his car at the moment. But we are seeing more drivers duck down. David H. Baker just came down this time by moments ago, as we still take a look at Lake at the moment in this group as they work the way back out of Forest Elbow down that Conrad straight. Lake, though, already with a big advantage. That is at the tip of the trap, though, for Thompson to reel back in the group. He is still in a fight with Henderson. That is for P4 at the moment. Can Henderson get the run before they have to duck down towards the pit lane? No run quite yet. Henderson staying behind. Not able to make a pass. Does make a pass. Takes too much of an aggressive move into the grass.
Oh, I thought that was going into Murray's Corner. I thought he was going to eat that wall. Okay, all right. Well, Travis Henderson going through a loop-de-loop there. That is a massive amount of speed. I almost wonder if we can get the speedo up on that thing, because he was going full speed. He tried to whoa that pony up, and how he managed to miss Philip Lake, I don't know. But yeah, for Travis Henderson there, unfortunate that happened, but you know what? It is only unfortunate that happened, because he didn't hit any outside walls. Nothing bad has happened. He basically gets a free pass on that one, Justin.
And I was gonna say, that's normally not the part where you want to try and dive bomb it in. he didn't start braking, it looked like, to the final section before turn 21 in the chase. In the 160s down to 150s, and I think realized at the last moment, I'm about to crash. And that's what ended up nearly happening. By the way, the race lead is still 0.4 of a second, but these drivers still approaching their pit window in a few laps or so. Right now, in terms of the pit window, is estimated about 3 stops on the day, but that's projected. Again, though, Clausen's majority of this run has had a chance to save, even when he has been bobbling a little bit. While Challenger only started being able to save here these past few laps. What are you thinking if you were in the seat of the 73 car at the moment?
Well, I will say I just saw Tim Clausen's almost wreck coming through the forest elbow. He had to get some pretty hefty brake smoke, so obviously his car is dealing with some tire woes, as well as both of these cars are just kind of dancing under braking, and that's what ends up happening with these machines. They're lighter, so they're faster, and your tires are less grippy because they're older, as both of them are pulling into pit lane.
So both of them decide to come down at the same time, matching strategies and tires. So into 22 and into 23, remember the start and finish line, or the finishing line rather, is where the bridge is. But this is going to keep things very tight here amongst these drivers. It looks like they want to stay identical in strategy, knowing they're identical in pace.
Yeah, and it is probably the scariest pit entry I can think of, as both of them hustled through the pit entry so quickly, both of them pulling into their pit stops. Christian Chandler going up on the tire racks. There's another car, another Kinetic Racing machine, Gabriel Roos, who of course we saw having that earlier incident. He's now up to, I think, what was that, 7th position, 14th position? So Christian Chandler is getting ready to come down off the jacks, as well as Tim Clausen's here. There's another car coming in, pit lane, getting busy.
Yeah, a lot of the drivers ducking down. Pudicowicz coming in this time. Some of the Kinetic drivers have gone in and out already in the lane. But drivers like Philip Lake, Riley Thompson, Kirk Crum are yet to duck down on the racetrack, along with Travis Henderson, Marcus Niskanen, Adam Ponte, Diego Jimenez Hermilia, and Trevor Verbronski amongst
Chandler
those drivers. Challenger comes out of the lead first, using pit box number 1 to retake the net lead.
Yeah, and I think that really is mostly because of the entry into pit lane here. I would like to see a replay, if we could, Paul, of them coming into pit lane, because Christian Chandler was really, he really threw that car to the risk. Coming into pit lane. I'm sure it's going to be a bit of a pain to get that, but you can see they're... Yeah, okay, so they're coming through the chase. You could just see how much that car was maneuvering. So these cars, they were really at wit's end. And now just watch just how aggressive Christian Chandler is able to assault through this pit entry. It's kind of a double switchback sort of thing, where they come through, and then at the end of it, he just floors it, and he's able to get right onto the rear of Tim Clausen's before they get to the cone. And I think that's probably why he was able to come out in front.
Yeah, that little difference, that little second, ends up getting him back in front of Tim Clausen's. So Clausen's now staying back within the draft again at the moment. They're about 9th and 10th. Philip Lake is currently the leader. He's going to duck down this time, as the drivers able to make it about 22 to 23 laps, it looks like, on the fuel mileage, on the pace so far today. That would estimate about 55 to 56 for the next pit stops for these teams, as one driver nearly loses the back end. Riley Thompson got loose on his entry. And you mentioned that switchback scenario on that pit entry. It's a very tight pit lane to try and go into without crashing in the grass.
Yeah, it is so easy to end up parking your car in a wall one way or the other. As Philip Lake did end up taking a lap lead. I don't think you get anything for that, but hey, cool. Right now the lead cars are in lap traffic, as somebody ends up having to pull off there on the corner of Murray's Corner. But Philip Lake getting his pit stop done right now. Marcus Niskanen in there, Adam Ponte. Basically, the rest of the field is in here. Kurt Crum, Riley Thompson are also in pit lane. A couple of others pulling in. Diego Jimenez Hormilia, he's been having a good quiet race, so he did start in 18th. Now, of course, because your front couple of cars had pitted, he was in 8th when they came by. But yeah, a couple of these guys really having good days here, and I think the car chassis that I keep seeing is Bombshell.
Was that a car stopped on the side of the road there we just seen a moment ago? Yes, it was. There were some sorry buttons flying up. That's one of the Hanson brothers cars, the 311. I believe we've already seen that one of those cars have some troubles. This is in the Griffin's Bend. This is Corbin Solmonson, in fact, that's been at the back of the field much of the day today. Clips the grass and slams hard on the tires and was right in front of the net leaders.
Yeah, good eye there, because he ended up taking the tow just in the nick of time there. But yeah, that's a scary one right there. You hustle yourself up under braking, and these cars, that's kind of, it really shows you just how much the drivers are pushing through the cars. It might look, oh, it's a couple of turns and some elevation changes, but these cars really are on the limit every single turn. So these drivers are really pushing their car through their paces here, as we're looking at Travis Henderson right now, as he's locking it up almost, going through the chase. But really, it is just as he comes in. Now, this is the interesting thing. Travis Henderson is technically your leader, as it were, simply because he hadn't pitted yet, at least I don't think. Yep, he was. So he was the leader. So it's interesting because now that he has pitted last, that means that he's going to end up getting net. He's able to push that envelope a little bit further, and maybe that could come up to his favor a little bit later when the final pit stops are around and he has to take less fuel than everyone else.
Yeah, there's still a lot to watch for at this point. Henderson already going to lose that lead. Tim Claessens is now the one up in front. Claessens able to make the run last time by through the Conrad straight to retake the race lead using the draft into the 209s using the slipstream. Schauner trying to fall behind. This is now Christian's chance to try and see if he wants to save. No, he wants to try and send it. Last year's Pacific Split winner of the Bathurst 500 retakes the race lead once more from Claessens.
Absolutely fantastic under braking, going through that. I call it the first corner, so I'm sorry. I know it's the second corner because Hell Corner is the first corner, but either who, it is just it's a high risk maneuver simply because you really got to swing that car and try to get your speed up the mountain. This is a momentum track. The uphill section, the top, and then the downhill section is all momentum based, and so you really got to have a good entry into the mountain in order to have that mountain, that rhythm down, and for Christian Chandler to be able to get that position. You can see just how close up Tim Claessens is able to get his car through simply because he's got the momentum just a little bit facing his way. Of course, a little bit of tire skip coming off of going through Forest Elbow, but he had a better exit than Tim coming off of the exit of Forest Elbow, and it looks like Tim is going to be able to suck right on back up through the draft down Conrad Straight.
Tim trying to get the run. Will he let up this time? Yes, he lets up at 174 miles an hour. And we've seen how dangerous it was last time. Someone trying to force it on the outside of the chase and trying to send it. He doesn't want to make that mistake, as we've seen from Henderson a few laps ago. Stays on behind, trying to time up the runs. Right now, the gap between them and Philip Lake is 21 seconds, though, as they have now pulled away. Philip Lake had such a good pit stop. He pulled 6 seconds on Riley Thompson in the lane.
Very, very interesting to see that. Wow. I mean, that might have just been between the pit entrance, and also Philip Lake did end up coming in one lap later than our current leaders, but still just absolutely fantastic from Philip Lake. He is now basically secured that third position for himself. He doesn't have to worry about anyone. And remember, Justin, just how much action Philip Lake had found himself in previously, which can actually be to your negative, simply because whenever I've been driving, from my experience, when you're finding yourself fighting, as we see our leaders right now, still neck and neck, when you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting, and then you find yourself in open space, you can actually wreck sometimes simply due to the fact that you don't have that fighting going on anymore, and for some reason it just doesn't translate well, and you end up wrecking the car. So hopefully Philip does not do that, but I can say I've certainly been there, done that.
Thompson, though, this time gained a few seconds, it looks like, on the gap, while Kurt Crumb's move up to the top 5. That's because Putaklis dropped all the way down to 6th position. Already 3 laps into his stint. We've seen the Kinetic drivers come at the same time. This is why he dropped back from 5th. And you can see how much more speed Crum was carrying first into the Griffin's Bend, and then Putaklis heading into the cutting, trying to take the sweep. Had a bit of a bobble from the first arc, locked it up in the second.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that was the best case scenario, because let me tell you, when you carry a little bit too much speed into that, you park in that outside wall, and you really just, the speed carries you into that concrete barrier. Remember, this is concrete. This isn't like a safer barrier type of situation here. So, he lost that position to Kurt Crum. Kurt Crum still carrying that front end damage. I'm surprised that they weren't able to do anything with that front bumper during the pit stop cycle, but alas, it doesn't seem to be bothering him that much. I mean, his lap times are good. You just had a 2:09 last lap, and now as he comes right on through again, we'll see how Kurt is able to do, but he seems to be comfortable enough with that as he now gets to focus on Riley Thompson, who's maybe 5 seconds up the road.
Yeah, right now the gap between him and Thompson about 4 seconds now. He's still a bit slower in the pace, but here's the counter argument though with not using the fast repair. You still have at least 1 or 2 more pit stops scheduled in the race, right? You want to kind of save it for maybe that last pit stop, or if you have critical damage. That looks to me what that 777 might be doing here, Cam.
Yeah, I don't think you should have used the fast repair or anything like that. I just, take maybe the 30 seconds or so, because I think, if I'm remembering correctly, these V8 supercars, I'm pretty sure that you can just like the sports cars, they can replace that front bumper. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. It has been some time since I have watched the supercar series, but I was pretty much under the impression that those are kind of interchangeable. Not quite sure, but either who. For Christian Chandler and for Tim Claessens, they are actually, I think, still the closest cars on track.
Yeah, right now the gap is about 1/10 of a second. Claessen's getting a great run this time. Side by side, heading into the chase, again fighting for the race lead. This time Chandler trying to defend the position on the inside. Claessen's trying to squeeze on the outside, nearly lost it. Ends up having to bobble hard as they head towards Murray's corner. Again, the preferred line is the outside to be able to carry more speed off the exit. Can Claessens hold on to that? No. Has to let back off. Chandler able to defend the position.
Yeah, Chandler is just, he skipped across the sausage curbs, and then once you have that door, you just let the car out, as it were, and that closes the door. And that really was closing the door. I'm sure later on in the race we're going to see people slamming the door, but so he closed the door in on Tim Claessens, and now Tim Claessens now sitting right on back behind Christian Chandler once again. Now we've seen Tim able to make the position here at Quarry Bend, but he decides not to do it now. I think maybe he wants to sit back for a couple of laps, as we are seeing in our live camera shots just a little bit further up the road. We have lap traffic proper. We have Roberto De Filippe and Stefan Wang here, the 85 and the 893. They are fighting for position, and they are going to be coming on up the road as they head up towards Skyline.
Yeah, right now the gap from them about a couple seconds at least up the road, and we have been seeing some traffic come into play as we've seen in some of the battles, but some of the cars are all the way scored back into the 20th position that they're about to reach, as you see on board the Torque Freak Racing machine. Just his 4th start of the season for Tim Claessens, but each time he's been able to record a top 5 whenever he's entered a major series event in 2019. And he's still keeping up the pressure on Christian Challenger, who has been the dominant driver all season. They're about to reach the lap traffic, though. Just about a quarter of a straightaway up the hill. Letting up that time is Stefan Wayne. He lets him on go. Again, that's the 28th place car that lets him on by. They still have Roberto De Filipis up the road, as you see there.
Yeah, and so they will end up closing in on him pretty soon, because Roberto De Filipis is, let's see, as they're running across here. I keep forgetting that the start-finish line isn't as close to that corner as I had thought. A 2:14 compared to Christian Chandler's and Tim Klassen's 2:09, since Tim looks to maybe move to the inside. I thought maybe he was going to let the bumper do some talking there, which would be way too early for that. We have an 81-lap event here, and we're only on lap 29. But after an hour of racing, Justin, I have to say, this has been not just dramatic, but very exciting as well.
Yeah, especially with these two nearly on top of one another still for this race. Lee Klassen's nearly getting to the back end that time. Again, he has been a bit harder on the braking into the corners, a bit more confident. That time, Challenger nearly got contact for the back end from that confidence.
Yeah, I mean, it was... it really did almost clean him up, because they were able to get by Roberto down the front stretch, so no worries there, clearing that traffic. But for Tim Klassen's, this is really just pushing, I think, Christian Chandler into making a mistake. That's the objective here right now, because he keeps closing right on into the rear of Christian Chandler, and I don't think you can pressure Chandler into making a mistake, at least here in the major series. He has been rock solid all season long, and Tim, I will say, he's going to put his best effort out there. I mean, there's only a couple of feet between these two cars, maybe at best maybe a foot, just 12 inches in some of these braking corners, because Tim is just really trying to hustle here, and then they get to the Conrad straight, and they let it, kind of breathe out a little bit. But Justin, it is just, it has been, I think, probably the biggest challenge Christian has had this season.
Yeah, Christian has won 6 events so far. 11 of the 12 events on the schedule, he's finished inside the top 5. He's been a dominant driver this year for a reason. It's been hard to try and take the lead away from him, let alone finish up in front of him. But right now, Tim Klassen's up to the challenge so far. Still 52 laps to go. Patrick Neese is the next lap car in front. And we've seen the lap traffic be very cordial today down the straightaways. Looks like Neese will stay towards the right side of the racetrack this time. Challenger, though, getting a chance to draft off the back end of him. Again, that's 25th place car that they're coming up towards. They also have one of the Hansen brothers car up the road as well. That's Mike Gaunt.
Yeah, Mike Gaunt is missing his entire front hood, and the front end is completely damaged, so they're going to be coming up on him very quickly. Now, this is going to be interesting here. Whereabouts, if you're Mike Gaunt, do you let these cars go on by? Because they'll be on him by the time they get up to the top of the mountain through Solomon Park and McPhillamy, at least I think. Maybe not so much, but they take that right up Reed Park. There's Solomon Park on the right, and then they're going to hit McPhillamy Park. And for Mike Gaunt, he's able to keep the speed up, so that's actually a good thing here, because now what that means is they'll follow each other all the way through the lower section going down. This is Skyline, as they'll hit the S's and the Dipper, of course, but so it should be an easy pass down the Conrad straight, but I was thinking right there they were going to come up on them through the road section.
Meanwhile, some more trouble for Michael Lane. Remember, he had some early incidents, was trying to battle with one of the bombshell cars. The Can-Am Racing Machine continues to have a rough day. It's already used the fast repair. And the now 24th place scored car, as you'll see right about here, I believe, having some more troubles to his day. Saying hello to the super cheap auto sign.
Wow, that car is super cheap now. Ha ha ha. I actually have no idea what super cheap autos is. I'm just presuming it's like a used car warehouse. But yeah, that can happen as well. And you would think maybe we would have seen more of that towards the end of the green flag run that we had there. Well, of course, they're all green flag runs, but you know what I mean there. The end of the run, as the tires had went out. But I will say. I'm kind of surprised with new tires that would be happening, but you know what? Maybe a little bit of overconfidence with the new tires, or maybe perhaps, as I just looked at the track temperature, it's up to 114. I mean, the air temperature is 74. It's perfect out, but that track temperature, that clear sky, is just really, really bumping up the track temperature.
I was about to say the level of grip is substantial between what we started in the high 90s now to having very little grip now in the mid 110s. 114 degrees Fahrenheit is that track temperature here. What do you do if these drivers try and compensate for that? Because we're seeing how slick these cars are getting in these corners and nearly running into each other in a couple cases under braking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it can happen so easily. Just a little bit of a miscommunication between the two cars if they're driving very close together. If you're really riding in somebody's wheel tracks and you put on your brakes just a half a second later, as Tim Claessens is able to use a sausage curb, and he has basically thrown his speed, and he almost nipped the back of Christian Chandler, speaking of that. But just look at how close he is able to get. Instead of like a roof cam, I want to see if maybe we can have like a in-cockpit camera for like the next time they go through that, simply because it's one thing when we're looking off the front bumper like we are now, as you could just see how fast these cars are going. That's 175, 176 towards the end of this, and you can just see, I'm willing to bet right here he's going to close right on up to the 73 of Christian Chandler here through braking. He almost leans to the inside, and he thinks better of it. But you can read the back of that font, and when you can do that, that is just it very close.
They're also very close to more traffic. 18th and 19th is just up the road with this battle of the race lead still heating up with 50 to go this time by. Onto lap number 32 of 81 on the circuit here. And it looks like now Tim Claessens, after trying to go for some passes early in the run, is again going back into a bit of a fuel save mode here, where he tries to get the advantage. Remember last time, they went the exact same time down the pit lane, this time by Tim Claessens lifting a bit early, not wanting to send the move too late. Just started to get the run up the mountain straight about 10-15 meters before braking. The gap between them in third spot, 24 seconds. Riley Thompson's closed the gap to P3 to 4 seconds. Kirk Crum and Utilus Putikowicz are still battling for fifth position as well on the track.
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of keep our eyes on the back of the track, because there really is some good racing going on, but it's just hard as we're getting that onboard here. The 451 at Tim Claessens. It's hard when these cars are, the front two cars are just racing so close together here. Now, this is where Tim is fast, as there you can see a lapped car there letting them on by, thank you. As you can just see how much he's able to close on up here through this entire section here. Now just, you get so close, it's hard to gauge how big of a front bumper you have, how much further ahead the engine and everything is ahead of you, as Tim swings out a little bit wide, and now he's going to close on in here, but they both get the speed on it around the same time, and it is just so impressive that these guys are able to do this lap after lap after lap. And I do have to think, if you're Christian Chandler, at some point you're going to just have to let Tim on by, simply because you want to save some of that fuel too.
The thing is, though, I'm surprised. Whenever Christian has actually lost that lead, he immediately, the next lap, seems to just decide to pounce. It feels like he's just comfortable being the lead car, doesn't feel comfortable being behind Tim Claessens for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's just it's not weird. I mean, I think what it is that if these two cars are running so close together, if one of them hits a wall or something, you don't want to be that second car. We've already seen a multi-car incident because of that. So that maybe that has something to do with it, but I don't think you could ever expect Tim Klassens or Christian Chandler to have an incident. Look how close Tim got before he pulled out here coming into the corner. Now this is a pass that he has made before, and finally Christian Chandler says, all right, I'm going to overbrake, and actually, nope, he's going to plan on the overcut, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to get the lead right on back.
And it looks like, again, Christian is just continuing to pressurize Tim Klassens at the moment. Again, forces the overdrive into the corner in Griffin's Bend. And again, back in the race lead after losing for a split second is Christian Chandler as he works up the hill. Big bobble that time towards the left side of the hills. They go back up the hills once more past Solon Park towards McPhilmy Park. Again, 48 laps to go this time by for the drivers. Lead cars in the 209s. Only driver within the same pace at the moment of these two has been Riley Thompson as 29 seconds back. These two have been the class of the field since the drop of the green flag. They pulled away from the lead group early and have been setting the tempo a second faster a lap most of the time. It's been challenging if you've been anyone else to try and even match the pace of the Kinetic Racing car in front and the Torque Freak Racing machine in second.
Absolutely, and I mean the closest is Philip Lake, and Philip has just gotten past Roberto Di Filippo. If you remember how long ago that was, he's nowhere even remotely close to passing Mike Gaunt, and there's a couple of others, as I think Tim Klassens almost just had a bite out of the rear of Christian Chandler going through the chase, but he did not, which is, of course, a good thing. But we now are starting to get to the point here where these machines are just you're coming up on actual straight-up lapped cars. Joshua Wolf, I did see he's in pit lane right now. Michael Lane is in pit lane, and look at that car. It is not like that left the factory, because, my goodness, I can't even tell you if that's a Ford or a Holden, because there's nothing left of it. It is a Ford, by the way, but he's missing the entire front end there, and you can see just a giant scoop of some kind, a giant wind scoop.
We've seen the incident that got Lane the damage there. At this point, it's going to be curious to see how that car is going to run here, because it's 27.3 laps down, so give him credit for trying to finish this race. There's still points on the line, especially with a lot of our drivers having troubles today, but he's going to have a rough one. You've seen that circle, how much of a gap there is already on that front end. No front bumper, no front hood. Heck, I think there's those little pipes that are showing up there are the only things other than the radiators that are up at the front.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to the headlights. Those are some strong headlights to stay on that machine. But yeah, you can see the two brake cooling ducts, and you can see the main radiator scoop coming in, cooling off that V8 machine, which you can kind of see. I mean, unfortunately, it's got one of those little big supercharger cover things on it, as a big old circle there. Yeah, you were able to see, courtesy of Paul Smith's amazing artistic ability. But yeah, looking around throughout the track here, Justin, we've seen great racing from Christian Chandler and Tim Klassens, but we kind of keep forgetting here. Well, not forgetting, but it's hard because there's so many other cars fighting for positions.
Yeah, 5th and 6th position on fighting at the moment. By the way, Tim Klassens already took the race lead after a run through the mountain straight. It's already put up a gap of 0.6 of a second. Let's stick with this battle for the time being at the moment. You can see them trying to shuffle along as the battle goes away, as Perdiquist really lost the back end. And
I will say, Edu Villa, we were talking about him earlier. Well, he's now up to 10th. He's broken into the top 10 after, I don't know how long ago he passed Diego Hermilia, but he passed him nonetheless, and now he has got Adam Fasciaponte in his sights. Well, actually not in the sights, because through this sector he can't actually see him, but he's not that far up the road, some 3 seconds for Edu Villa to make up, and Villa is running about 0.8 faster lap, so it is a matter of time for Villa to catch up to Adam Fasciaponte, but He's doing an absolutely fantastic job as he started in 22nd, and most of the positions has been simply due to the running that he's been able to do.
Already 35 laps down, still 46 to go this time by, as the leaders continue to scrap. Let's go to a race spot fan immersion. We'll follow along with Christian Challenger as he continues to fight with Tim Claessens for the race lead. You're watching Race Spot TV and the iRacing Esports Network for the Major Series European Split. You've been following along with the battle for the race lead as Christian Challenger still continues to stay behind Tim Claessens for the time being in that race lead battle. 26 seconds at the gap to third position. Justin Pritz alongside Cam Walsh with the director Paul Smith for tonight's action here from Mount Panorama Circuit. Christian Challenger being much more patient here, takes the patience to aggression as he retakes the race lead.
Well, you heard us. I think that was almost a mistake from Tim Claessens completely on his own. It didn't. I think Christian Challenger was there, but this is really just Tim losing the rear end all on his lonesome there.
Yeah, now he's going to have to fall behind again. Let's take a look at the mistake here. As you see him leave a bit of that inside and then sees the dive, ends up having a lot of bouncing and bumping. Coming through the apex off, loses the race lead, trying to run the high side. We've seen that a couple times already today, where drivers, if they're forced up to the top side of Griffin's Bend, They're likely going to lose the position they were holding on to. That time it drops them to second. Lap traffic is ahead again. That is Peter Vostrel. Peter Vostrel has had a very quiet race today in 16th as the Vostrobot will also move by a damaged car of Gabriel Ruse. That's the 15th place machine as they get by the traffic here. So Tim Claeson's now back to second spot once more, and again allows him the chance to try and stretch the fuel an extra couple laps, while one car goes off into the sand and Ruse.
Yeah, and well, normally there's a jump there, but he decided not to take the jump today, thankfully, and I'm surprised. I think, did this damage... Oh, see, this damage has happened this lap, actually. So Gabriel Ruse damaged that car just going through the down section here, the downhill. Ow, I see what happened on the exit of Forest Elbow. Just got a little bit loose and creamed that car into the outside, or the inside barrier as he brings it down pit lane.
And we've seen him on the left side of the track as the leaders passed by, and then it looked like that suspension damage was to the point where he couldn't turn, went through the sand trap through the chase. Now he's into the pit box once more. Still following along with the battle for the race lead again as Christian Challenger still holding on for the time being. And again, these drivers expected to come in at about under 10 laps or so based on when they came in last. Remember, they pit on lap 22, coming to lap 23 on stint number 1.
Yeah, and I mean, just thinking here with my brain, if they came in on lap 22, I would presume then that they might come in on lap 40, I don't know, maybe 44, maybe 45.
It depends on really when they dictate in, because remember, they matched exactly when they came in the last time through. This time, they're going to work their way through the dipper and towards the Forest Elbow once more. It's gone back and forth between these drivers all day long. Claeson's more aggressive this stint than the last stint, to say the very least. This time, not as good of an exit out of the Forest Elbow. Don't know if he's going to be able to get the run he wants to on Christian Chowder. Look on board as he tries to work his way up the top of the hill towards the chase. Reaching 170 plus miles an hour, decides not to make the move yet. Again, got the speed he needed a bit too late to try anything there. He's been very tactical with his passes today.
Yeah, as they're coming up to Lyndon Swaby, and Lyndon Swaby is going into pit lane, so never mind. Now, I will say Lyndon Swaby is actually the last car on the lead lap. Well, I mean, he won't be now, but it's interesting to see that number 100 car. There's some damage to the left front, which he has been carrying for some time, but he is coming down into pit lane. This is interesting.
Yeah, that's his second stop on the day. We're seeing a few drivers that are already into the lane, a lot of them with damage at the moment. We're seeing these two drivers continue to grow their gap. The pace has dropped to the 210s, by the way, with some of the battling, as well as that track temp going to a blistering 118 degrees. And they're still having a long ways to go. Most of the drivers, though, are nearly a full stint behind.
Yeah, it is toasty out on that racetrack, and I would really start suggesting that they do something for your tire pressure adjustment, because you got to remember the bands here. The bands of the temperature range for what you would expect for the half pressure, the half pound, whatever, of PSI is really not that big. You might make a half pound adjustment just for a couple of temperatures, a couple of degrees of temperature. And now we're talking about how we're almost, 20 degrees hotter on the track than when we started this race, and a couple of degrees warmer in the air. Like, it definitely needs to start looking at it.
This is getting hotter for the position again, because Corbin Solbenson in the wrong spot on the exit of Forest Elbow. Forced to check up for both the lead cars. A bit more slower this time up the Conrod straight. But again, Tim doesn't force the issue. It almost looks like he's content on just lifting just about 100 meters before the first leg of the chase and staying behind at this point. He's not willing to force anything and force them to fight.
Yeah, absolutely, and just under braking, Tim is still better under braking, and I don't know if that's intentional and Christian wants to be calm, or if maybe Tim is just being better, but yeah, impressive.
You can see the conditions on your screen in that circle indicate up to 48 degrees centigrade as well, 24 degrees Celsius the air temp. That is also +4 Fahrenheit from the drop of the green flag. The winds are also kicking up too. Right now they're gusting to the left of the cars when they go down the Conrad Straight. They're currently hitting the right side doors at the moment. That's continuing to get higher and higher. And 14 kilometers an hour, I believe we just seen 14 miles an hour rather.
Yeah, I mean, and that certainly does have an effect as well. I was very disappointed when Paul put that graphic up there. He didn't hand draw with the yellow pen the Bathurst circuit. He instead used a picture of the circuit. Very, very sad. But either who, it is an important thing to remember, because these cars really are on the end of their wits going through these corners here. They're at max suspension load, they're at max tire load, and then you add a couple of more mile an hour as Tim Claessens does drift the car, but that somehow manages to get him closer to Christian Chandler. As you can just see, there's nothing between these two. It's just impressive lap after lap that they've been able to do that. But you add a little bit of these wind gusts, maybe a little bit of a tailwind going down Conrad Straight, that really does change things, especially over the course of an entire stint.
Still final on with Claessens, as he now decides it's time to make a move. Gets the run he's been waiting for towards the edge of their stint here. Takes the race lead back again for Torque Freak Racing. Now it's the question, can he hold on again? He's been struggling as the lead car, it seems, to the chase. That time nearly overdrove it. This time into Murray's corner, Christian Chandler trying to take the outside away for the 451. Can't do it. Tries to go for the switchback, though, as both of them get loose.
And we've seen Chandler do this before, earlier, going through Quarry Bend as he comes to the inside here. Will he drag the car out? He will not. So Tim Claessens was there, and he was able to get it away. Now this does kind of upset the balance, as it were, because Tim isn't going to be yielding that inside line. He's going to be sitting right there, and then the quote-unquote one maneuver he's going to make is actually Christian Chandler leans out, but this is the one move. He makes the one move, which is to throw the car to the left, and you can really, I mean, I know that we don't look at blocking and all that and swerving or whatever the word I'm looking for right now, but it's typically, you have the guy in front of you is allowed one move, and that's kind of a gentleman's agreement sort of thing, and so Tim was able to use that one move properly, and he's kept Christian behind him.
But the thing is, with the swerving, that also breaks up the slipstream, right, for the draft, so that has the chance to try and break up potential runs if you do that. Claessens, though, already pulling away about 4 or 5 car lengths. The thing is, though, Christian Chandler has been stronger, it seems, in Sector 1, and especially Sector 3 on this racetrack, while Tim, he's been better in this mountain portion of the track all day today.
Yeah, it's been impressive between these two cars. Tim is just seems to be more comfortable under the braking here. Now, I mean, I will say for whoever loses here, I'm going to say that the only reason why they lost is because I didn't pick up Ford, but that's beside the point. I'm sure that that's... there's really no difference between the Ford and the Holden, by the way. No. But I just always make the Ford jokes. But anywho, for Christian, it's he's able to suck up under braking, but it's not like watching like when Tim does it, where he is just... He quickly comes right to the back bumper, and then his car just seems to park there, and it stays there for the entire corner, which is impressive in itself.
We just seen David H. Baker duck down. Last time he came down for stint 1, it was about a couple laps away from the pit stop. So that looks to be a scheduled stop for the 33 car. He was in 13th position, +7 for the drop of the green flag on a much different strategy here. But the race leaders going back and forth again. Challenger, left side, up the mountain straight. Can he make the outside work of Griffin's bend? No, shoved a bit off the racing line by Tim. So the 451 able to defend again for the inside as he bobbles around.
Yeah, and this is a bit of a gap here, but I'm sure it's going to come right on back. And I'm going to take a look at where some other folks are. And, Philip Lake has been running in the third position here for some time after starting in 11th, and he is on an island. He is completely by himself, though he's got a couple of lap cars around him. He really is completely on his lonesome there. And then you've got Riley Thompson, who's completely on his lonesome. Kurt Crum, who's completely alone. Sixth, which is completely alone, and that's really kind of a theme now. It seemed that after this pit stop cycle, for some reason...
Oh, wreck in front of the leaders! Clausen's involved, Challenger having to dodge it! Major trouble for the race leaders as lap cars crash. Troy Anderson and Andy Banfield collided right in front of the leaders. As you'll see here, no idea they had this coming right in front of them.
It looks like Andy Banfield was who clipped the sausage curve there, and unfortunately was not able to gather it up. He tried so very difficult to get it through, and Troy Anderson had nowhere to go. And once these two cars parked, none of them moved. There was really nothing they could do, and Tim probably should have seen that coming, perhaps, and maybe take the escape road. But yeah, very, very unfortunate for both of these cars, as I think it was Tim who picked up the damage. And yeah, that was just Tim on his own who picked up the damage. Now Tim has pulled that car into pit lane, and he has climbed out of the car.
That's going to be a race-ending incident, potentially, at least to take him out of the victory. And you've got to wonder what's going through his head there. Had no idea that was coming. No space to get around, it looked like. Had maybe a half a second to a full second to react. And now, Christian Challenger leads by 26 seconds. Oh, man. That came out of nowhere. And that was just at the halfway point of this race.
I mean, we were talking about this before the race started in the pre-race that it can happen instantly and at any time, and that is exactly what we saw there. And good maneuvering from Christian Challenger to get around that wreck as it was happening. He was following right behind Tim, and he was able to get right on by. But it is just what a bummer for Tim Claessens for that to happen right in front of the leaders. And it is just how it happens, Justin. You know, anything can and will happen. The mountain is an extremely difficult racetrack. Back when I used to be active in my open wheel Lotus 79 days, I remember we were racing here, and just about a little further down the track, maybe towards the Dipper, we had a very similar incident, and that took out just a large amount of cars, because it was the very first lap of that race. And you know, if you were going to have an incident, that's when you have it, not in the middle of the race.
Well, as our director Paul Smith would say, the mountain giveth, the mountain taketh. And that time it definitely taketh away from the Torque Freak Racing driver and giveth to Christian Challenger with a gigantic lead. He isn't at the same pace as before, well, in part because he's got no one to draft with at this point, but 26.7 seconds the gap to Phil Blake. There's still a lot of time to go in this race, though. 38 laps to go that time by underneath the finishing line bridge. But he's in a great situation here. He still has to come down to his pit stop here, but he's got a gigantic lead, almost a full pit stop advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has changed the entire dynamic of the race, though we did see that Philip Blake is running faster laps. That's really because, well, he was racing with Tim. Now, I have a feeling that it's going to go the other way very quickly, as Philip Blake is coming down pit lane right now, as, well, people are coming in like a lap earlier than I would have presumed. No, they're coming in on lap 44, okay. But I'm surprised Tim hasn't climbed back into the car. He hasn't left the server, but he hasn't climbed back in the car, and that's unfortunate for him. he's going to end up being out of this one. I would have figured perhaps with the toe and everything, he could still be fighting for. Really, this actually, well, you know, I feel like remember how when we were at Milwaukee or at Michigan, rather that the car of Christian Chandler said, I'm either going to win or I'm not. And or I'm not going to finish, really, and so that was the objective. I almost wonder if that's what happened here. Tim said, well, I'm going to race for the win, and if I can't get that, I'm not going to continue, because really everyone that's a lap down is up to 13th.
Yeah, you're following along with the drivers at the edge of that lap down group at the moment. Remember, David H. Baker on a different pit strategy, and Joshua Wolf having technical issues that dropped him outside the top 3. He was someone that we were also looking at one point potentially that could maybe find a way up to the lead group. Instead, has not had a good day. So these two on very alternate pit strategies here. And this is about 3 minutes back in the race lead at the moment.
Yeah, and so with that, well, I mean, that kind of takes the wind out of the sails, doesn't it? Because we had just such a barnstormer going on. Christian Chandler coming in here on lap number 45. He'll get his pit service done and sorted away. No pressures here because, well, I mean, 40 seconds down the road is Kurt Crum. So Philip Lake will be the only one to keep an eye on as to where Philip Lake comes out here. Compared to where Christian Chandler does, but I still don't think it's going to be anywhere even remotely close.
Yeah, right now the gap is 43 seconds to Kurt Crum, and they still have to pit much of the drivers behind them, so Chandler's now in, it looks like, great control of this race at the moment in that 73 machine. Again, just unfortunate for Tim as Kurt Crum also falls sway to the pit lane. Putikos also comes in. Already approaching the edge of the pit stop service is the 73 car. So Christian Chandler in control of the field as the top 3 into the lane. Travis Henderson takes the net lead, but only by about a half of a second at the most as the rest of the cars get their service.
Yeah, and Christian Chandler is long away. Kurt Crum, yeah, coming in. Putskelis is coming in. Philip Lake is just passing the start-finish line. So that is a massive gap. Minute 24 at the start-finish line, but we also have to remember that that's not factoring in Christian Chandler's pit stop. So it'll be about a 40-some-odd second gap, I think, probably.
Give or take, maybe more so closer to 30, but Travis Henderson, remember, has to come in to pit. The gap between Chandler and Lake is already 30 seconds, and he doesn't have the net race lead yet. So right now, Christian Chandler with a dominating pace at the moment. Had one driver that was fighting with him much of the race until an incident happened in the mountain just about 5 laps ago, just before the start of the second pit stop window. That takes out one of the Torque Freak racing machines. Travis Henderson currently in the race lead, but still has to duck down, remember, for his second stop, along with Marcus Niskanen, Adam Fassi, Ponte, Diego Jimenez Hermelia, along with Trevor Bobrovsky, also yet to pit for their service. Henderson still holding on to the draft in front, was in the 2:11s last time by, but Christian Chandler having a bit of a slipstream. Might elect to be patient, though, as Henderson looks to come in potentially this time by.
And Tim Clausens does officially retire from this race. That was the competing duo to Christian Chandler. So a very unfortunate end to what was probably one of the most fantastic duels I have ever seen here at Mount Panorama. You know, I'm sure he almost wishes that this was the Bathurst 250. Because that would have been fantastic. But you know what? Incidents happen. It's unfortunate, but it does happen, and it will happen again. It has happened in the past, and it's all part of the business of racing. But throughout that, I will say Travis Henderson, who has not come into pit, is only, 2/10 behind Christian Chandler, which sounds exciting up until, this time by Travis Henderson is almost assuredly coming into pit.
Yeah, he still has to come into pit, and you can see the difference in grip levels too. Got a little bit loose time at the bottom of Griffin's bend and lost a couple more tenths. So right now, Challenger in command of this field. Now the gap is only 28.4 seconds between him and Lake, but there's still ways to go in this race. All I can really say at this point is still some more drivers yet to pit, including about half of the top 8 positions at the moment. Challenger looking to win back-to-back Bathurst 500s and looking to win what will be a 7th event of 2019 in the Major Series European Split. One of the drivers inside this top 8 is your Sportsman's Points leader. In 6th position yet to pit is Adam Fassiponti, the unorthodox motorsports Euro driver, looking pretty good at the moment. 6 seconds to the next position. The next position back still has yet to pit.
And what do we call that anyways, that 84 car? Is that what you would call vaporware? Is that the aesthetic? I'm always a fan of it. But yeah, I think that's what we call it, vaporware. Yeah, interesting look. And I will say, as far as, we talk about the pros, the Majors Series, for those of you at home might not know, is split up into different points divisions. To give everybody a proper championship. It's pretty obvious that if I joined this series, I would not be racing against Christian Challenger for a championship. Sorry. But what's nice, though, is that because of the divisions, everybody at their paces gets to really compete at a high level, no matter what the speed level is, of course. And so your sportsman, it goes pro, sportsman. I think there's a third one, is there not?
Legends.
Yes, legends. And that is just it's fantastic to always remember of those, as well as Fasciaponti is going to be bringing that machine into pit lane, and that'll drop him down some 40-50 seconds, so he should come out somewhere between Kurt Krum and Uldis Putiklis.
Amelia stays out this time, so does Bobrovsky. They still will have one more, still have to come down for their second stops, I should rather say. They pass by the 84 on the track for the time being. Their pace in the 211s to 212s at the moment, still 2 seconds off of Challenger on fresher rubber, but looks like they're trying to stretch the fuel a little, as much as they can here for the second stint.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, you know what? If you can stretch it all out, I think it's all right. Just keep on. Now it's kind of turning into a challenge against the mountain, though I will say Trevor Bavorsky and Diego Harmilia are fighting for position right now, actually, for 7th position, as though it's Grizzly versus Bombshell Motorsports as they work their way up the mountain. So it is always a massive challenge, even if you're just by yourself, as Bavorsky tried to kick the car out, but almost lost it in the process. They're working their way past McPhillamy now.
Still following along with that battle for 7th position as they work their way now towards Skyline. That's turn 11 coming up. Heading to turn 12, the S is all the way to the dipper here. This is where some of the carnage has been here today. But again, if you set yourself up good in this sector, down the hillside, you might be able to have the shot for a pass to the Conrad Straight. Remember, if these cars duck in, that might be important. The car behind them is Kurt Krum as well in 9th position on fresh tires. That is also looking to get on by these two machines. So we'll see what they decide to do here. Bobrovsky gets the draft for the Grizzly Motorsports car. Will he look to the right side? Yes, he does. The 10 car looks for 7th spot, side by side in the chase. No one lifting. Bobrovsky earlier braking, though. Can he go for the switchback on Harmilia? Yes, he tries it. Can't make it work, though, as they head down towards the final corner.
Yeah, and so I will say Kurt Krum was arriving on the scene for that one, and he ends up getting a pass because both Diego Harmilia and Trevor Vovorski come into pit lane, and both do about the same speed. So these pair of Holdens now coming into pit lane, they're going to get themselves work done as Mason Marzolf ends up having to get on the brakes for both of them as they're coming in. Markus Niskanen is in pit lane as well. So pit stop still ongoing. I would say that that's kind of impressive because the leader came in 4 laps ago.
Yeah, these cars having a bit of a fuel and tire advantage, but the problem is the gap has been so substantial, it's going to be extremely difficult to have a chance to try and even catch up to Challenger unless you somehow get yourself into a situation where you cut a full stop, but that is very unlikely with a lot of the drivers. The max we've seen for fuel stint in the iRacing Bathurst 1000 was about 26 laps or so on average. These drivers only gone on average 24 to 25. So they are right now still in line for the 3-stop. Most of the drivers, it looks like, prioritizing the tires more so than the fuel. As Bobrovsky, side by side, looks like if he can get on the exit properly, he'll get this position. Amelia, yes, he will.
See, that's impressive because Vovorski actually kind of bobbled through the pit entry. So somehow he was able to recover that one and get himself up ahead. That is impressive right there as we're closing out lap number 48 here at Bathurst.
Still 32 laps to go this time by for the race leaders. We've also seen Travis Henderson coming down as well. Hermelia lost 2 seconds in total on the racetrack with the pit stop sequence.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out, it didn't appear slow. Nothing appeared slow, so maybe it was just a little slow on the entry. Maybe he was just a little bit below the pit lane limiter for a little bit too long. Maybe didn't burn the tires coming off. Maybe didn't get to the exit fast enough. And all 4 of those things combined made what would be a 2-second difference through that entire cycle. But that is just surprising to me. But I will also say there is a lot of this race left to go, and I don't think Diego is going to be really missing out on anything.
You see right now Henderson in the pit lane has been the longest to stretch it out in the entire top 10. So up the freshest tires in the grouping at the moment here. So Henderson off and away in P6 in front of Niskanen. Let's take a quick opportunity if we can to look at the top 8 positions, as that means all the drivers in that said top 8 have now come down to the pit lane. Christian Challenger in the lead down by 30 seconds. The gap had gone down to 28 seconds inside the traffic, but he's been able to grow that again on Philip Blake. Blake, one of the bigger movers, +9 from the start of the green flag, is in second. Riley Thompson's in third position, tried to stretch it longer this stint. He's fallen behind by Kurt Crum with Bombshell Motorsports. Yudogis Putakos is in the 5th position in the 666 machine, with Travis Henderson in P number 6. Markus Niskanen is in 7th, and Adam Fassi-Ponce rounds out the top 8 positions at the moment. The gap, as you can see, between 1st to 8th, about 1 minute and 36 seconds. So the gap is pretty gigantic between the top 8 at the moment. The lead of lap cars, just 11, are on the lead lap cycle. Now 32 laps to go in closing down for Christian Challenger as he continues to control this field here on RaceSpot TV, the iRacing Esports Network. We'll take the opportunity to go to a RaceSpot fan immersion. Let's follow along here with what's actually go, I think, with Kurt Crum this time. Let's try something a bit different. He's in the 5th position, having to cut himself down the gap a little bit and try and keep him away from Putakos from behind. Let's follow on board with the Bombshell Motorsports machine as you're watching RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. You've been following along with Kirk Crum, who is in 4th position for the RaceSpot Fan Immersion. The iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV for the Major Series European Split. Justin Prince, Cam Walsh, Paul Smith in the director's seat as we look at the battle for 10th position. We were seeing that before in the pit lane. Right now, Bobrovsky, though, is under attack still by Diego Jimenez Hormilia at the moment. These two drivers nearly attached to the hip as they come to 30 laps to go for these drivers. Following along down the Conrad Straight, you can see Hermilia just out of drafting range at the moment, but Bobrovsky currently looking a little bit better at the moment. Remember, he came up with the advantage out of the pit lane and has since been able to hold on to it for now. Right now, one of the closest battles on the racetrack at the moment amongst these two drivers. They do have some traffic. They are also trying to get back towards Ido Vila in the 535. That is about 4 seconds up the road. But Hermilia with the draft closes up an extra 0.2 of a second that time by. Slowly approaching our way into the good-to-go fuel window here for the Major Series. As we continue to follow along with this battle here, Cam. Apologies for that, as Cam rushes to put the microphone in front of his face. These two drivers fighting hard to fight as the cars are in front of their faces.
Yes, indeedly, and I will say it was watching during
in trouble for Fila. The 535 had major tire squeals and topped the wall and has just turned into a 3-car battle. He just barely clipped the outside wall in this section right here. This has now lost him 2 positions because of that little clip.
It could have been so much worse, however. That could have ended his race and his charge throughout the field. But, well, I will say Edu Vila has passed these guys once before, and well, he's going to have to do it again because that was a hard-fought passing also for Diego Hermelia, because I think Edu really could have closed the door if he wanted to, but Trevor Vavorsky, who I was just about to say was just sliding his car all over the place, going on up the track, is now managing to find himself quite safe.
So a battle that was for 10th has now turned to a battle for 9th, by the way. If you're keeping track at home, Vavorsky pulling a bit of speed again down the straight. Hermelia a little bit more. Still trying to fall behind, but we'll have to keep an eye on that 535. Had been the biggest mover of the race before the incident. That just handed that title to Vavorsky for the time being. As we look, tire smoke pushed up on the track. 29 laps to go for these drivers.
Yeah, it's strange to think we're already past halfway. We're not even 2 hours into this Bathurst 500 as it is, and well, it's been quite the eventful race. We had a fantastic battle between Christian Chalnier and Tim Claessens. Unfortunately, an incident it unfolded in front of both of them. Christian Chalnier was able to dodge it, and Tim Claessens not so much. But outside of that, I will say, everyone else, the rest of this field really seems to be all over the place as far as where they started to where they are now. It's quite impressive just how much of a journey these drivers have had over the course of the last 54 laps here at Bathurst.
Should note they're a couple laps away, most of the competitors, from being good to go on fuel. The top end limit was about 26 laps projected today. We're about a couple laps away from that, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Expecting, though, a lot of the drivers going to prioritize tires over the fuel for this last stint, as it is still just 28 to go on the top ticker. Still fighting on this battle for 9th position, though. They're still fighting for hard-fought points. Remember, some of these cars amongst that battle inside the top 10 of the standings entering today.
Yeah, most definitely. Let's see if we can... Oop, I have no idea what that noise was, but that startled me. But let's see if we can't maybe get the old points standarino thing.
Vavorsky 11th, I should rather say, coming into today. But however, he was just about a couple hundred points back of Reach's highest 8th. Guys like Verde not amongst this race field today. David H. Baker, up and down day. Claude Berval, he's had some major troubles today. Also one of the top drivers in the legend standings. Joshua Wolf, also in front of him in the standings entry today, had technical issues. Wolf is currently all the way back in 12th position, but he's on a different pit strategy. So Vavorsky has a chance, if he can keep up these positions here, to be in the top 10 of the points at the end of the day.
Yeah, most certainly. I was hoping for like the little points table on our screen, but it didn't happen. Yeah, it is just it's an exciting time because everything is coming to an end, and we have to remember that Joshua Wolf, super early on, he was running in 5th position, and he dropped out. He had a connection issue, very unfortunate for him, and then, well, he has just been driving ever since he's gotten back. He's been driving quick, and you know what? He's running in 12th position now, and so you got to think he is over half of the field already, and that means that that really he made the absolute right choice. He could have just said, well, that stinks, I hate that, tough luck, see you next time, but he's stuck in it, and now look at where he is.
I mean, I don't blame him for one, want to finish the race, but two, again, up in there in the point standings. As you look at the top 3 splits at the moment, Challoner is in the lead by 32 seconds, while Riley Thompson specifically, has quietly moved himself into 3rd after everything, with the pit window, with the bit of the longer stint with the TDR machine. He's currently on his own, 41 seconds back in the lead, and about 9 seconds behind the next position, and about 14 seconds in front of the next position. Way far up the road from these cars that are at the very tail end of the lead lap.
Yeah, and it is just one of those situations where we were really focusing on what was going to happen with lap traffic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's kind of getting to that point where you just hope that the leaders don't really impact the rest of the race. Everybody, this track, do we have the track map with all the dots of where everyone is? I don't know if Paul has that. No, he doesn't. But if we did have it, you would see the track, and there would be cars everywhere over the course of the entire track. There isn't a corner of this track that doesn't have a car on it. And what that means is that no matter where you go, no matter what you do, no matter how big of a gap you get, Justin, you're always going to have traffic around you, and traffic you got to think about, because as we saw some 10 laps ago, anything can happen.
Yes, indeed. And add on to that point, too, you don't want to do anything that ends up affecting the leaders, especially after what happened with that incident before. You don't want to cost somebody the race.
Yeah, no, I mean, neither that. And I mean, the incident that happened that we saw was with Andy Manfield and I think Stefan Wang. There was nothing intentional or anything about that. They didn't, it's just, it happened. Accidents as they are, they just happen, especially here at Bathurst. I mean, for goodness sake, I'm surprised that we haven't had as many incidents as I would have expected, and that's what we were talking about earlier, Justin, or at least I was talking about earlier in the pre-race, where it could be either a wreck fest, because I mean it's Mount Panorama, or for some reason these drivers, they focus, they get their laps done, they do their practice, they get the good setup, and we have what we've seen right here, which, while yes, there have been incidents and people have lost the car, and we certainly have had damage and everything like that, for the most part this has been a fantastic race.
It was kind of like that, too, with the iRacing Bathurst 1000. We actually seen a vast majority of the field survive lap 1 and have some attrition here and there, yes, but it was a clean run at that time last month here at this racetrack. Of course, the real-world event just happening over the past couple days or so over the weekend here, but there's still a lot of racing to go for these cars. 26 to go this time by for these machines. At the tail end of the lead lap, Christian Chowder about to get to 25 to go. And once the air battle's on track, 15 Claude Berval can mention a part of the Sportsman top 5 in the points. Or pardon me, the Legends points, I should say. Fighting with Peter Vostro for points. The gap is about 0.8 of a second between them.
Yeah, and Peter running strong there over Marzolf. Or no, actually, other way around. It was Belval who had gotten ahead of Vostrel. There you go. As Can-Am Racing, which sounds very Australian. I'm not sure. We see Can-Am cars all over, but I'm not sure where Can-Am is from. They're an American team or whatnot. Can-Am, probably Can-American Racing, not Can-Am as in the automobile or the thing there. I solved my own problem. Hooray me. But I will say, throughout all of this, Belval apparently having something over Peter Vostrel, because not only was he able to get the pass, Justin, he's got like a 4-second gap, which is impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. By the way, Joshua Wolf has just came into the pit lane. He is good to go on fuel. One car having trouble, though. Another one of the Hanson brothers' car. Mike Gaunt with some more trouble in his car. Had gotten back to 17th before he lost it all there.
And then backed it up into the wall, and then is driving it forward. Where is he? Oh, you know what? He might be stuck or something. But either way, yeah, that just happens all the time, and that's an easy thing to have happen to you. Very unfortunate.
And remember, he had to get some repairs, I believe, earlier on in this race already with the fast repairs, so he might have to race to the end on that one. He's now still in 17th, about 15 seconds up the road from the next position, but that's going to hurt to try and make the checker flag with about 24 to go.
Yeah, and as we're seeing the cars coming across the stripe right now, It's we do have. Let's see. It is what, 21 to go? I think was what you said.
24 to go.
24. Oh, I'm sorry. But for only 24 laps, I mean that it's getting to the point. Not too far to go. But I will say for Christian Chandler, he's still pushing his car because he is getting a distance over Philip Lake.
Christian Chandler, though, is about to lap that battle we were keeping an eye on for 9th, 10th, and 11th. That's now spread out a little bit. As you take a look at Chandler, looking to lap his way up to that 9th position, currently on the pace potential to even lap his way up to 8th if he times himself right. Right now, though, stuck behind Ito Vila. Remember, Vila only fell back to 11th after the mistake after being the highest bit mover in the field. Up to lapping 11th goes the 73 car. Still about 4 seconds now up to the battle that's now shaping up, still for 9th.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is only a second between Hormilia and Vavorsky, and this is what we saw earlier on from the pit stop cycle. Vavorsky was able to jump Hormilia, and he really hasn't been able to say break away, and now they're not stuck, but they are behind Mike Gaunt as the 886 machine will certainly allow them to go by. Maybe not so much. Nope, they will. Okay, I was just Conrad is kind of a deceiving straight sometimes because it seems that you get the majority of your speed in the last half of that because you're not going up the hill anymore.
Trouble for an Air Hansen Brothers car. The 425 Martzov has continued the team's struggles. That machine has just crashed from 25th. It's not been a good day for the Chiefs cars.
Though I will say, in contrast to that, I mean, to be fair, the Hunt Brothers movie Chief things, they're always getting like hurt and like, you know, stuff. So I mean, it's aesthetically fitting.
So
I haven't seen that movie, but I'm pretty sure that's what happens. They just run around and just get in fist fights the whole time. That's all I know of the movie.
I believe the movie's actually Slapshot, if I remember correctly.
Slapshot, yeah.
But Fabrowski is also pit, as we were just showing that, by the way. So he's ducked down for his final scheduled pit stop on the race, it looks like. So pit stops are happening amongst the drivers now inside the lead lap, while the Hansen Brothers machine tries to wheel itself across the racetrack. The question is now, when do you decide to pit if you're, say, stuck in a position battle like we were seeing for that 9th, 10th, 11th position? Because Christian's still working his way through your traffic, and we just seen Bobrovsky come off the pit lane here for his final scheduled stop, only 22 seconds in the lane. In the box.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for me, it's one of those situations. I would just I run it to the tires. You know, wait until I can't run on the tire.
The tires that time nearly outran him, pardon me, but continue.
Oh, sorry, I was wondering, I'm looking for smoke and everything. I was like, oh no, but yeah, no. You run it to the tires, and then you want to have a good band of tire life over the last stint. Like, you don't want to wait too late, and then you'll have lost too much time by waiting. And you don't want to come in too early and then finish the race on clapped out tires. So it's one of those situations where these guys will have practice tire stints, so they'll know. I don't necessarily know if they planned for the track temperature getting up to 126 degrees, but hey, you know, that's certainly, you got to be prepared for anything, I suppose, right?
Well, it is Australia, so there is the chance it could get very hot. And remember, it's, as you see those track temperatures, if I'm looking at it right, I believe that says 62 degrees Celsius and 126 degrees Fahrenheit. Look inside that box. It's 52 degrees Celsius, pardon me, on the reading comprehension, but that is very hot. That Fahrenheit total is about +5 from the green flag in air temp. That track temp is about +30 on the day.
I believe the term would be it's toasty. It's here in New South Wales, Australia. which, of course, my condolences to the people of Australia for it being so hot. Sorry, it's Australia. Of course, it's getting to be summertime, isn't it? Because it's getting to be wintertime here. That's how that works. See, I went to school once. But yeah, you would think, it's interesting just how there not being any clouds. The track temp or the air temp is only 77. It's a nice day out. It would be a great day, nice shorts and t-shirt type weather here. But just once you get on the track with that sun beating down on it and these tires having run through the track here so long, it is just a noticeable difference. And it's not like we're just we're saying that it's going to make a difference because it sounds cool. Really, it does make an absolute difference with these cars. I mean, I think of years ago, maybe not so much, but nowadays with all of the improvements and everything that has come here, like, it is a massive difference. And anyone that is that started this race is basically driving on a different track at this point.
Yeah, the fall off today has already gone to 4 or 5 seconds as the track temp is kicked up on the circuit. But as well, you've seen it with Bobrovsky, how loose it is also getting with that higher temperature. We're also now following along with this machine in 10th and Vila. Still about 4 seconds up the road to get back to Hermelia, but as this pace has gone on, he has been falling off at this moment. Should note that Hermelia is in the process of getting lapped, I believe, right now by Challenger. In fact, just got lapped this time by, one car has crashed in the pit lane.
Well, I mean, it was only a matter of time before somebody decided to do it. It is Mike Gaunt, who was already carrying damage a little too fast into pit lane and puts it in the bunker. And, actually, I was going to say park it into the little car cubby hole there, but he was able to get that thing not swung around. He had to do it the old 3-point turn there. But he managed to make it work and didn't touch anything. So, I mean, I call that a successful pit entry.
I don't know if I would involve time lost and the fact that you already have a car demolished, but on the bright side, Philip Blake came in front of him with the clean race car still in second.
That's right, and Philip Blake, Philip Blake, I've been trying to figure out why I remember that name so much. He is a runner in the Audi 90 Quattro.
Yeah.
So he, of course, I would say, out of cars that he would be familiar with, this is probably one of the most familiar cars he's going to have. This is kind of a modern iteration of that old GT O type car. I mean, a massive engine, constructed formally for this, and then running around. So yeah, I would figure that would be why he's able to showcase his skills here, because he's been doing absolutely fantastic. He's running in the second position out of starting 11th.
Yeah, and especially broadcasters say it, such as the Global Sim Racing channel that is covering the Americas split later on today. They'll definitely talk about his talent over and over again. It's just a second start in the European split in 2019, but you mentioned how strong he is in the retro cars. Lotus 79 won his division 4 straight times in 2016-17. As you mentioned, also good in his car in the Camel GT series, and is a very talented driver. May not say that in the iRacing portion, but here and there in some cases, pardon me, in 4600 on the road course side compared to the 6500 of Chris Challenger, but he is quietly one of the more talented drivers in all of iRacing on the road course service when it comes to this type of racing.
I mean, 4600 iRating. I mean, I don't even know why he races anymore. I mean, that's so small. I mean, there's nothing to it. I mean, I certainly don't have 3 numbers in my iRating. But either who, do I? Actually, I think I'm around 1100. I don't. It's not good. I jest. I think out of the 3 of us, it's probably Paul who has the actual good numbers. Paul, what is your iRating?
My current iRating is 2610.
See, he's great. He's perfect. It's Justin. I don't. You do? Do you even? I'm not sure if I've ever actually seen you racing, Justin.
I race more on the oval side as the more drivers come down to the pit lane, but we're on the 4900s at the moment on the oval side at the moment. But you see some of the kinetic racing cars coming in, so that might mean one thing: the leader might be about to come in this time, maybe, if not next.
Just casually saying he's got twice as much as both of us combined. That's fine. But I will say I'm not sure if Christian Chandler would want to. Well, I mean, would he come in lap 66, which would then be running onto the 22 lap stints? But will he get the proper tire life if he does come in on lap 66? Because they'll be so short laps.
He's coming in.
Yep, you've called it right on the ball as Christian Chandler is coming into pit lane, and he's able to just take it nice and easy coming in. I mean, we saw earlier how he had to really hustle against Tim Claessens, and now he's just able to comfortably come in and get his final stop of the day.
I was going to say we've seen the kinetic racing drivers pit within the same lap or two every single stop cycle, and all on the same page here, and again, this will allow them to come in and make it to the end safely on fuel and not allow any chances. Remember, Christian Chandler coming into the stall here, 48.7 seconds the lead over Riley Thompson. So he is just in pure control of this field. Thompson just working his way through the chase right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's hard because like we were talking about how this is like the first great, one of the first great big challenges that he's had with Tim Claessens, and now we're going to have a finish that we're used to seeing where he just absolutely blows the field away. And I mean, he pulls out of the pit stop, he's out and away, he passes the pace car, and he's back out on track there, and Riley Thompson is just pulling into his pit stop. So I mean, you want to talk about a dominating a run here without the competition of Tim Claessens. Christian Chandler is once again the crown of the field, which I don't think Christian would be happy if it was anything other than that.
And give a shout out to Riley Thompson, though. He's currently scoring to the third and making fourth position as more cars pass him on the track that are staying out here, but he's only had 2 top 5s the entire season so far. Even though he's shown some great speed in some of the races, it's just sometimes he's gotten into some bad luck or some bad incidents that have put him down the running order. Speaking of a bit down on the running order, the 12th and 13th position battle now heating up between Wolf and Vostro as these drivers currently work their way around. Wolf has already taken his final pit stop already here in camp.
Yep, and we're watching this battle between Joshua Wolf and Peter Vostrel. And I will have to say here, just I have to ask, because I know this is a Cameron-ism, that paint scheme on the 404 car, is that like throwing back to like a famous supercar paint scheme? Like I feel like that's like the bright orange and the bright yellow and the white is like a paint scheme that I think I remember like is historically famous here at Bathurst. I don't know, but I will say I don't remember. I think maybe like a Toyota or something. I don't have any idea. Maybe a Holden. But anyways, I will say both of those cars have to get past Patrick Meese, which they do quite easily. And I will say Travis Henderson is arriving on the scene, and he is going to have to maneuver to get around Peter Vostrel and Joshua Wolf because he's in fourth.
Yeah, Henderson also still having to come down for a scheduled stop. The fastest lap, by the way, was by Phil Blake last time in the 2:10s. Let's see them work their way back to the chase once more. Again, they're inside the pit window for them to duck down and make it to the end. Kirk Crumb's ducked down this time by Henderson, ducking his way by lap traffic this time, but staying out. Henderson has not been afraid, though, to stretch it as long as he can to get the freshest tires and fuel. But the problem is, it's going to be curious to see how much time he might lose here in the 2:11s that time by.
Yeah, and it is the lap times have really changed. I'm surprised. You would have thought like it was just somewhere in the ballpark of normal wear between pit stops, but no, a 207.676 was Christian Chandler's fastest lap, and the last laps that he's been running has been just almost outside of the 210 bracket. It is impressive, at least to me, to be seeing just how much this track has changed. It'll always blow my mind, just having been a member here for a very, very long time. How lively this is, it will always blow my mind, which is fan-diddly-tastic. Let's see here. Will we see things I'm thinking about here? Will we see Christian Chandler maybe lap up to the top 10?
We already seen him lap into the top 10 for the pit stops. So it is possible he laps even higher, though, into the top, maybe even the top 8 if he keeps up the pace. But there's still ways again to go. There's still the chance of traffic. There's still the chance of mistakes. As we look at Bobrovsky, who is amongst the drivers on some of the oldest tires, and he was already very slippery, and he underfueled the car with the short stint, only going about half distance on his past fuel stint. And this was a bit of a gamble that got him a lot of space on Vila. How much space? About nearly 20 plus seconds. 22 seconds to be exact.
Well, there you go. There's nothing in that. That is just a hair's breadth away. That is just absolutely dominating as far as the difference in lap times there. And I will say, we are following the battle for P6. That is Marcus Niskanen versus Riley Thompson. Riley Thompson did just lose that position. So he is out of the picture, and Putzklis is now in the picture here. It's Crum versus Putzklis. Okay, there we go. But either way, I will say we finally do have a battle, Justin, to look at.
Yeah, right now, getting close as this battle. Both cars have already come down to pit. It's going to be, again, though, last time by Crum came in to get fresher tires. Putzklis on a lap or so older tires. That might be crucial, especially at the end of this race, to keep an eye on. Can Crum, though, get himself into 6th position right now and not have to worry about the potential fall-off at the end of the stint? No, backs off the brakes this time. Putzklis overcooks the corner, though, and lets him by regardless as he locks the brakes.
Just a little bit of pressure. You're not used to having that pressure on you like you were in the beginning of the race. And Kurt Crum was just able to capitalize on that. Didn't really have to do much at all. He got on the brakes earlier, and that Kinetic Racing car, as you can see on the replay, got a little too hot on the brakes, a little too fast into the corner. Kurt Crum throws it up a gear and says, see you later, as he makes his way through, and now they come up onto the scene of the car of Patrick Neese, and Patrick Neese, the number 75, is going to easily let them on by. Good on him. That's what we always see here in the Major Series, the people being proper, and Kurt Crum, the 777, now in, having gone from 7th into the 6th position. So we'll have to change it to 666, I guess.
Problem is, that number's taken.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yes, it is. By the car in front of him. By Putzklis, who we just passed. How about that?
So the 666 tries to chase back down the 777 to get up to P6. Huns make themselves. They're about 3 seconds back of Marcus Niskanen, though, so they might be able to maybe, if they depend on how they handle this run here, be able to drop back up to the 47 car. Later braking by Putzklis. That risks it too much. And that's a major save.
That's some Tokyo drifting right there. That was a four-wheel slide going over the sausage curbs. Let's see if we can see that one again here on board the 666. As you can see, he takes the cutting fairly well, gets on the brakes, and then he goes to go turn. Everything goes through. It was a beautiful looking turn, but as you can see, as all the cars are getting smaller out of the front windscreen, maybe not the fastest way to go around the racetrack.
He's actually now behind David H. Baker in some lap traffic. We just seen Marcus Niskanen come down what appears to be a scheduled pit stop for him, so that moves the battle up for the top 5. Adam Fassiponti also coming down for his final scheduled pit stop. Peter Vostro also coming out of the pit lane just now after a 40-second stop in his box in the 404 machine. So some of the last of the drivers making their scheduled stops. Andreas Robertson in 17th position, yet to come down for third stop, as well as the 893 of Roberto De Filippis. As you see them come out of the pit lane here. So mostly everyone's come down for the scheduled pit stops here. With about 15 laps to go. It's just now a sprint to the finish.
That it is. So, what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to see where everyone is, now that everyone's pitted, where their quote true positions are. And I will say, Travis Henderson and Philip Lake are right there, and I wonder, is that because Travis Henderson hasn't pitted? Yes, it is. Okay, so I just looked through the lap history there, and yeah, his last pit was somewhere
17 lap stint.
Yeah, 17 laps ago. So this is a fairly hefty stint he's putting on here. Well, actually, no, it's not. So I'm wondering, how did he get so off schedule then?
I mean, remember last time he stretched it as long as he could go, I believe, last stint. He's now up to stint lap number 18. But here's the thought process, I think, that he might be going through here, if I'm comprehending this right. His pace is only half a second off of what Philip Blake just recorded in the backdrop there, in that third place car, for example. If once he ducks down, he has the chance to do what we've seen for Vrosky, but in reverse. Get fresher tires, but take less fuel to save a lot of time in the pit lane when he ducks down for what could be a very tight window, yes, but could be a gamble that can get him some good track position inside the top 6.
Well, I mean, I think for me, the other thing to look at is it's kind of a moot point, unfortunately. I mean, a full pit stop is, what, 40 seconds? Thereabouts.
That's the point. That's the point. If you only take 20 seconds of fuel, then you're in a good position to gain track position.
Well, the problem, though, is that everyone behind him is 45 plus seconds. I mean, outside of Philip Lake. So even if he does take a full, like, the strategy is good, but unfortunately there really isn't going to be much benefit to it, simply because, well, everyone else is so much slower. Like, if he takes a full 40-second pit stop, that's still only going to put him in 4th.
We'll have to see how long the pit stop is first off to keep an eye on. But second, you can see he's already been able to hold up Lake a little bit here in Sector 2 again. We've just seen Robertson come down to the pit lane meanwhile at the same time. So we'll keep an eye on this Grizzly Motorsports machine that's currently in second and hoping for some kind of luck here. Riley Thompson, 45 seconds back of the race leader, about 11 seconds back of this position, is in 4th. Kirk Crum is in 5th, still in that battle with Pudaquist in that 666 machine.
So I figured it out. Okay, so normally I'm used to reading metrics as gap to cars, and I wasn't reading that Travis Henderson is only like 15 seconds ahead of Riley Thompson. I thought he was 45 seconds ahead of Riley Thompson, but Riley Thompson is 45 seconds behind Christian Chandler. So I figured it out, everyone. We're great. So yes, if he takes a 20-second pit stop, that will then put him right in front of Kurt Crum instead of how I was reading it, whereas Travis pits. Riley wouldn't even come close to passing him because I had read that he wasn't. I didn't do the math. Basically, I read that I thought he was 45 seconds ahead of Riley Thompson, not only like 12 seconds ahead.
Hashtag just cam things. Hashtag I'm lost. Henderson holding on to second still as Lake nearly dived his way to the inside of Griffin's Bend.
I don't have my fancy timing thing anymore. That got taken away there. So now I have to do things the old-fashioned way with my brain, which is a very frightening subject to tackle.
Lake, though, is still having a hard time finding a way on by here. Just couldn't get the run that time down the mountain straight that he wanted to here. So despite the older tires, Henderson is really defending as well as he can here. Trouble, though, for Broski. The 10th position car now hobbling slowly down the track, has some right side damage. Again, remember, he did a risky move trying to take less fuel and having the oldest tires in the lane.
Oh boy.
You'll see here under the force elbow, he had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it looks like he got on the throttle there, and it was just a almost a weird-looking incident there. He tried to save it by keeping the throttle in, and then he touched the grass on the other side of the racetrack, and then he just climbed the concrete barrier, which is lucky that concrete barrier is there, because there's kind of a cliff on the other side of that, a cliff. Yeah, Trevor, though he didn't come into pit lane, though, as he is still throwing the steering wheel heavily to the side at every single corner there, so he wants to keep that thing held together.
Thing is, if he comes down right now, he's going to potentially throw away a good points run. He's inside the top 10 still with about 11 seconds back to 11th.
Well, there you go. I mean, and we have to remember, like, the one lap down race is still close as well, as we've watched Philip Lake now right behind Travis Henderson. If you're Philip Lake, I mean, the lap time difference is there. Do you try and get on by, or do you not really worry so much, because you know that Travis is going to end up going into pit lane, and with a 10-second gap between Philip Lake and Riley Thompson, I mean, do you try to hustle Travis Henderson up or not?
Well, right now we're seeing Lake really confident on the braking. I think he's trying to hustle, but at the same time, you got to wonder if he's got fellow team members. That is a dirty Torque Sim Racing logo on the front hood, for example, and having some of those drivers telling him he's going to have to pit anyway. He can't make it to the end here, Henderson. And based on the math, Henderson's going to have to come down. You're eventually going to get second regardless. The thing is, though, the gap you mentioned that was 10 seconds is already down to 9 seconds.
Yeah, so it is just how much do you want to risk it? You don't want to do what ended up happening with Tim Claessens. Well, Tim got ahead, and then an incident happened, and then Tim plowed through the incident, and the second car was able to get right on by. So you never know what can happen here at Bathurst, and I think it's kind of no matter what you do, it's probably going to be the wrong decision, but you have to make it regardless, just because, well, that's racing.
Lake looks like he's in a good position to try and get the slipstream, gets faster through the gears, does have the draft. Henderson stays to the left side of the track. Lake, as to be expected, goes to the right side down the Conrad straight. Underneath the Mitsubishi sign they go, but Henderson sends it hard on the inside. Henderson wants to hold on to this time, and he is still fighting for everything he's got here.
Well, he's racing like he's not going to have to come into pit lane, which, I mean, I don't know how to tell him this, but he's going to have to come on down pit lane. He came in on lap, 49? Or lap, he came in on lap 49. 21 laps, and everyone else was running 22 laps comfortably, and we were seeing 26 maybe with these cars, and that's still not going to be out of the window.
This is a gamble. If he's trying to hope that he's going to make it on fuel, this with the lap down, I don't know. This is going to be within a couple laps still.
I mean, yeah, if he only has to go 80 laps, I mean, that is a thing to think about, being a lap down. No, he's not a lap down. He's racing for second. Yeah, but 81 laps, and you're going to try to go, that'll be, what, a 30-lap stint?
That would be around that ballpark, but you can see how much time Lake is losing because he's stuck behind. He just lost another full second last time by to Riley Thompson. So Lake's got to be in the point where he can't wait to see if Henderson's going to duck down already 21 laps into a stint. He needs to make the pass the next couple laps to make sure he can pull away and hold on to the second spot on the podium.
Yeah, and I will say, just we've got 11 laps to go here at the Bathurst 500 for the Major Series, and yeah, Philip Lake, he does have some time. I mean, if you're only losing the second a lap, there's still 9 laps or so to do it. But there is no way that the Travis Henderson is going to have the fuel for this. I'm telling him, like, you can't do it.
Henderson's what he's doing here is a massive gamble. I have to try and say, though, to see if he can maybe hope that he has something. His pace has dropped to the 212s now on the older tires. and the older fuel. Lake still cannot get a run, and Henderson finally comes in for the fuel. About 21 laps, coming to 22 is all he can make for Grizzly Motorsports. Henderson, the last car on the top 8 to pit.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the last car to come in down pit road out of pretty much everyone, I'm pretty sure. Now, he is only going to have to pit here. Watch, he's only going to be pitting for maybe 15 seconds. I would have to say he's going to have to get tires no matter what, and that is 2 tires on each side where they go they go from one side to the other, and then they have the fuel in. So as soon as you see the jacks come down, he is going to be off and away. Joshua Wolf comes on in, and for Wolf, that's a bit, I think, either unfortunate or not. He's going to end up losing position, so he might be dropping back. Oh, no, he came through, and Johnson has spun the car. He's decided to do a little bit of Tokyo drifting on the concrete wall, and you know what? Cinematic points, yes. Good for the car, no.
And that's what we like to call cold tires. Put in 22 seconds of fuel and hello gas pedal, hello wall.
The gas pedal does work. It is an effective thing. You know, it gets the car moving. And Joshua Wolf goes right on by. So let's see. This has put Travis Henderson just ahead of 7th position. So therefore, mathematically speaking here, using my big brain, he'll come out in 6th.
That was to be expected, though, based on the math. But I don't know if he'll be able to reel in 5th, so at 10 laps, he's going to need to have a blistering pace to catch up to Utilis Budaklis, for example, who is 16 seconds up the road. Battle is on for 10th position, though. Vila and Vavrovsky are now scrapping it out for that spot. Remember, it started with Vavrovsky having that mistake hitting the outside wall. Vila's been able to reel in from 9 seconds back to get back in the top 10.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming here, and he's now, Vavorsky is now sitting there. He wants to get another Grizzly machine in the top 10 here. We've already got one being, it'll be Travis Henderson, of course. So he wants to get more points for the team because, of course, this is not just individual racing, but this is a team championship as well, and Grizzly has been strong performing. If I remember correctly, they're in the top 5 at least. I'm pretty sure that Grizzly is in a fight with Bombshell, and so they really want to get as many positions, and of course that is something they're thinking about.
And Podokos has just ducked down to the pit lane again. So what's going on with the 666 machine? All of a sudden he's decided to pit again.
When did he pit last? Is he at the end of a stint? Well, he pitted on lap 45. So... yeah, like
no, he pit on lap 62. Remember, that was the time when all the error cars for his team came in. So something's going on with Pudaklis. He had to put another 13 seconds of fuel in the car.
Maybe he underfueled the darn thing. Very unfortunate for him there. I mean, you hate to see that, but that is another. Where is he going to come out? Is he going to come out right in front of?
6th.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he's going to come out right in front of Marcus Niskanen, and Niskanen now has a target. He now has somebody to chase down here, and now that's going to put Henderson up into 5th.
Yeah, now Henderson all of a sudden is in line for a top 5 with that situation. It's only about 3 seconds the gap to the next position, nearly getting loose as Niskanen. You seen that major overcorrect as we jumped on board there. He had to go hard to the right and the left through Griffin's Bend to hold on to that car.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Christian Chandler has just lapped Adam Fasciaponte for what will be, there will only be 7 cars on the lead lap, and that is just very impressive indeed. I don't care who you are or what series you are now. Christian Chandler once again proving you can just lap anyone in any car, basically, at any time.
Just got confirmation that he did underfuel that 666 machine. That's why Pudakos had to come down a second time in this stint to finish off the race. That dropped him 1 minute and 40 seconds back to the race lead, and 4 seconds make it now 5 ahead of this 47 car. So now it's going to be curious, now that Niskanen kind of has the carrot on the stick, can he find a way to reel in Putiklis to get himself that position?
I don't think there's enough time here. There's only 9 laps to go here at Mount Panorama, and so I have to say here, I'm not sure if there's going to be enough time for this to get sorted out between anyone chasing anyone down, but it's all just going to be on if Putiklis makes a mistake. That's going to be the big thing. If Putiklis has a bad corner entry or has a slip up or has something, Niskanen will be all over him. So Niskanen does have to keep that in mind. I think at this point you're driving not just to not to catch up, but just to make sure that if anything happens, you're right there.
Yeah, right now the gap is actually stabilized at 4.9 seconds for Niskanen. So he is still trying to get up on the wheel to gain some time. His teammate Kirk Crum for Bum Show is also looking good in 4th position, though. Again, Kirk Crum's been had a bit of damage to the front, has not even had to use that fast repair at all today. But he's in line for a top 4 finish here. He's 10 seconds back of the podium. But the 777 car having a strong run today.
Yeah, absolutely, and really quite a couple. Everyone that you see in the top 5 has been having a fantastic run today. I mean, look at where all of these cars started. Philip Blake started in 11th. Riley Thompson started in 8th. Putiklis started in 10th. Niskanen started in 12th. I mean, even just slightly outside of that to the top 10. I mean, Edu Vila started in 22nd. And Trevor Vorsky started in 21st, and they're 10th and 11th. I mean, this has been just a fantastic run for a lot of these drivers. There have been a pretty significant amount of stories here at the mountain here in New South Wales.
Looking at those positions right now, Lake +9, the highest mover in terms of position at the moment, but the biggest mover overall again has been Vila. But that pass on Vrabowski went up +12 to retake that title. Baker +8. Wolf, though, with the technical issues, dropped to -10 on the day, was in line for top 5 before then. Well, guys like Robertson, Vostro, +10 and 11 at the back of the field still. Rudes had some early trouble, -16 on the race. While others like Klassen, -26. Want to address this before we get towards the final few laps or so. The drivers involved in the incident did apologize to one another. There was the apology from Andy Banfield to Troy Anderson, along with Tim, along with Christian Challenger, about hitting the wall. But Tim took more of the blame on that because, 1, apparently he felt he didn't have the fast repair on his end, but 2, that's because instead of turning off the windshield wipe on that front windshield, he accidentally turned off his fast repair. That's why he sat in the pit lane, and that's why he ended off the race early.
So just a couple of very small technical hiccups. I'm not sure if that's a word, but we just made it a word. But hiccups and whatever, and that ends up costing you in the end. It does. But either way, this has been a fantastic race as we're watching right now the closing stages of this. The car of Hermilia is slowly gaining on the targets of Adam Fasciaponte, that synthwave vaporware type of paint scheme there for Fasciaponte. The lap differences have been staggering, 4/10 per lap.
So he is closing in here. It's going to be curious to see if he can make the move, though. We've seen so many cars be able to reel in the drivers, but with the best spots being at the end of the straightaways and the mountain straight and the Conrad straight, it's been difficult to get the slingshot run to get the job done. Again, Fasciaponte, the leader of the sport class point standings with 2 top 5s on the day, while Hermilia looking to gain up more ground. The gap is only 2.4 seconds still. But he looks very confident to do so.
Yeah, I mean, once you get there, that's the challenge. I wouldn't even be thinking about how to pass somebody until you get there, and I think there might be just enough time
to be able to get in there, because Fasciaponti, the last couple of laps, has just been comfortably running in the 12s, maybe dipping into the 11s sometimes. But for Hamilia, it has been just 11, 11, 11s, a couple of 13s, though. That's certainly not helping him out, as he looks not pretty comfortable under braking.
Sticking with this battle for the time being, one thing to keep an eye on, though, Pudeklitz did take tires when he came down for the fuel, had the fastest lap last time by, still needs to close 11 seconds. Drivers, though, closing in on the end of the race. As Hermilia gets loose, that loses him a couple more tenths at the moment. He's actually losing ground now. That lap, he was about 2.4, much the stint. That lap, rather, he's dropped down to 2.8.
Yeah, and some traffic for, I think it was for Putziklis. There, he had some traffic to get around Belval, and which means that there'll be a little bit more of a gap between him and Travis Henderson. So it is just some excitement on the way here, but we only have 6 laps to go. When you think about it, it sounds like it might be a lot, with it being a 3.86 mile track, but really there isn't.
It's a gigantic racetrack. There is still a ways to go for these cars, at least 10, 12 minutes for some of them at the moment to make it to the checker flag. No time to give up anything. No time to even relax. It's get up and go time for some of these cars to gain some crucial points in the standings at the moment. Still following along to Hermilia in that 9th position. Still about 4+ seconds behind, though. Cannot seem to get reeled into Fasciaponti. Did gain an hour, about a second or so. That time working his way to the top of the skyline down the S's. But he is trying hard as he can with the difference here.
Yeah, I just don't think there's going to be enough time here between Fasciaponti and Hermilia and Putziklis and Niskanen, though Niskanen is certainly trying to make it interesting. These cars, they seem to be slipping and sliding all over the place. Track temperature is up to 130 degrees. So it's the hottest that it's been on tires that are starting to get a little bit old. As we're following along with this battle between Putziklis and Niskanen here, it is just hard to... it's Travis Henderson and Uldis Putziklis, it's just one of those situations where you're trying to figure out who is going faster, and of course you can look on paper. Putziklis is going very much faster than Henderson, but you also are trying to figure out one slip up, one tail slide, and that could really spell the difference between being able to challenge or not.
We're following along with the 6th place car. Meanwhile, Putziklis, you could see the gap went down half a second last time, about 2.6 a couple laps ago, and about 1.8 or 1.6-ish, give or take, on lap 74. Here's the problem. While he's got the pace advantage, he still needs to gain about 2 seconds a lap to have a chance of a top 5 still, and that's going to be difficult. We've also seen Bobrovsky duck down to the pit lane just now. Remember, he had damage. He's had to come back down to the lane.
And that's going to throw him well down the order. The lapped cars are really not that far apart, as he's going to have to come in, and something could have happened. He could have brushed the wall and given himself a little bit of suspension damage that he needed to fix before he could take the checkered flag, perhaps. Not sure, but that car is just sitting there, so definitely not a fuel-oriented run, so unfortunate for Favorsky.
One of the drivers now passing him for position is Joshua Wolf, who is still on the recovery drive. Could potentially get as high as 11th at the moment, depending on how some of the attrition can go, even maybe get a top 10 still. He had been in range to make a pass on Baker before running into the dirt off the exit of Murray's corner. So Wolf is coming, and coming in quick. A 2-second difference last time by between him and the car in front.
Yeah, most definitely. And if Baker, one of those Grizzly cars, he wants to, again, he's probably thinking about the championship points here. And Torque Freak is a competition directly with Grizzly, so this isn't so much a battle between David Baker and Joshua Wolf. It's really a battle between Grizzly and Torque Freak. And so it'll be exciting to see here, because Joshua Wolf is going to arrive on the scene extremely quickly. It's just, what do? Do you sit behind and see if you can't follow for a couple of laps? Do you, or do you immediately engage and try to pass as soon as you even have the chance to, like Patrick Wolf is going to have down Conrad?
Right now, I think he's going to jump on this, because with so little laps to go, I don't think Wolf wants to leave anything for chance here. Looks like he's got the pace advantage. He's been one of the fastest cars all day. Main reason he fell down the order was that technical issue. But now, slipstream broken up a little bit, staying defensive is David H. Baker on the left side of the racetrack. Can Wolf get the run to make the move on the different strategy? Remember, he pit with about 12 laps to go. Can't make a move quite yet, though. Just didn't get the run he was looking for that spot. But Wolf still has that extra grip to help him in the corners. That time it looks like he's going to be let on go. Yes, indeed. Baker lets him on go, gives up the spot. Up to 11 goes Wolf.
Well, there is no point in risking wrecking your car to hold somebody that qualified in third when you qualified in 20th. So I think that's probably the right and the safe decision, because Joshua Wolf will probably be maybe a couple of seconds up. I mean, I think if David really wanted to, he probably really could have pushed hard and maybe could have gotten 2 laps out of that. But to try to hold off that for 4 or 5 laps, I don't think I could do it. And so I think that David made the smart decision there.
Yeah, and you can see how much of a difference already between the two drivers just by letting him go. Wolf has already pulled 10 plus car lengths on the position for 11th. He's off and away, 3.5 laps to go. Make it 3 to go for Christian Challoner. Meanwhile, he just got the 3 fingers from the flag stand. He'll get the popsicle sticks next time by in the 73 machine. Getting ready to lap Peter Volstroll again. Still has a couple more lap cars, but since the incident we've seen with Tim Claessens, he has been the class of the field. Christian Challoner on his way to win number 7 of 2019 in the Major Series European Split.
As he goes right on by Peter Vostrel there, putting him 2 laps down now. I think this is just an absolutely fantastic race from Christian Challoner, and it's been really a great race for everyone involved, as those 2 cars behind are not going to be fighting for position. I mean, for Christian, this has just been yet another great hallmark win, I suppose. I mean, he just won last month in a Lotus 49 round and around Milwaukee. Now he's in a V8 supercar, and he's going to win, and almost the entire field up to 7th position will have been lapped. So, again, it's just impressive performance after impressive performance from Christian Challoner.
And it helps, too, to have the versatility on both the oval side, where he's a pro in the eNASCAR peaking for his iRacing series, finished at the top half of the point standings, secure spot for 2020, but as well with the experience on the road side. And that's coming to play all season long. There's a reason his point advantage is all the way off in the distance. About nearly 1,200 points entering today with 1 race to go. He has been the king of the campaign. Remember, though, there is still 1 more race on this schedule with the Brazilian Grand Prix in about a few weeks or so, but you could basically give him the crown at this point.
Oh, you definitely can, and that'll be not in the more current McLaren. That's actually going to be in the Formula, the Williams, the FW31. So that'll be interesting. I think that car has come back in popularity, question mark. Not quite sure how the open wheels run these days. But I will say, so that will be an interesting one. It'll be a full Grand Prix at Interlagos in the FW31, and I gotta say, it'll be funny because that was actually the first place I ever did a broadcast with back many years ago in the Grand Prix series, as it was called back then, with for the World Championship.
Meanwhile, let's check in though on Putikos. You can see though he's closed up a lot of the gap with about a couple more laps to go estimated for him. He's closed the gap to just under 5 seconds. So as soon as the cameras went away, the speed picked up.
Well, that must be it. The RaceBot TV camera is just weighing people down, I suppose. But it is just going to be too little too late. There's only 2 laps to go, and already there's just too big of a gap, I think, easily. Either whether it's between Fasciaponti and Harmelia, whether it's between Niskanen and Putiklis. So I think right now everything is going to finish the way it stands now.
Here's the thing, never say never when it comes to positions, as we've seen today. In part, Henderson is only about half a straightaway, maybe 3/4 of a straightaway away from Putiklis. Another second gain that time, another half a second grown back again. They have about 2 laps to go on the circuit, and they are not in range to be lapped, so that's the factor too. That 666 is going to still have to make it around 2 full circuits. It is going to have at least 1 shot to make the pass on Henderson.
Now, and speaking of which, that 1 shot, well, there's only 1 lap to go here because Christian Chalnier has just taken the last corner. He's getting on the throttle. For the second to last time, he now takes the white flag, and so this is it. This is going to be the last run for Christian Chalnier, but that really, oddly enough, means that you'll have 2 runs then for the Niskanen and Putiklis.
It's been domination all season long for Christian Challenger. Has already won 6 of the 12 races on the schedule coming into today. Looking for win number 7 on the trot for the Major Series. The series points leader still has 3/4 of a racetrack to go for Christian Challenger. All he needs to do is make this part of the racetrack clean, and he will get a dominant win of 48 plus seconds. This will not just be his 7th win of the season here, Cam. This will be back-to-back Bathurst 500s in the Major Series.
And back-to-back victories 1 month after the other. Don't forget that as well. He won in Milwaukee, of course, which we were both, we watched that dominating feat. But for Christian Challenger, this has been it'll be a fantastic finish, not just for him as he comes up on some lap traffic there. He doesn't mind at all. It's going to be another great victory for Kinetic Racing. Kinetic Racing is going to be having an absolutely fantastic finish here, and with Putiklis, there is a potential for top 5, but realistically, though, it's going to be instead, 2 of them in the top 10.
Still about a third of a racetrack to go. One of the another storylines to keep an eye on as this season comes to a close. But this would be victory number 13 in his Major Series career. That would put him just 2 behind the all-time wins leader, his fellow eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series competitor in Blake Reynolds. But for Christian Challenger, as he comes out of the chase and works his way to Murray's Corner, he'll get ready to celebrate. For the 2nd straight year in a row, Christian Challenger wins the Bathurst 500 for the Major Series for Kinetic Racing Europe.
Absolutely fantastic driving from Christian Challenger. Stayed cool under all the pressure of Tim Claessens and everything like that. Other cars pulling across right now. The car of Trevor Vovorski finishing just ahead of Peter Vostrel. You've got Philip Lake. He's just coming down Conrad Straight, and it actually looks like he's carrying a little bit of damage, oddly enough, but it's not going to really... Riley Thompson is still a ways behind him, however, but doesn't look like it's going to affect his finish, however. So if you're going to pick a time to the damage, you might as well do it on the last lap, because Philip Lake is going to finish in the 2nd position after starting 11th.
Philip Lake, a strong run today, +9 to make it to the checkered flag. He gets 2nd position. Just 7 cars were on the lead lap coming to the checkered. Riley Thompson gets the podium. and what is much deserved for him after some ups and downs in 2019. Kirk Crum comes away in fourth, but Travis Henderson only has a 2-second cushion to this car. The 666 of Yunis Putuklis closing in. Can he hold on enough? The older tires of Henderson. He pit late on the strategy. Henderson overcooks the corner. Putuklis charges hard in the chase. Henderson, will he be able to get up in the gas in time? Had to cut his way to the grass. Putuklis coming in hard. Time penalty potentially for the 24. Putuklis overcooks the corner. He locks it up. He'll finish in 6th while Henderson comes away with the top 5. How about that?
Yeah, and whatever he lost there, I think as we're looking at the replay here, whatever he had gotten in, say, a time penalty, he probably would have given that back already in the just by the nature of driving through the grass so slowly. But yeah, just look at that. He just starts to get the car just a little loose. He hits the outside tire, the outside grass, and then he has to bring it back in there, and then he gets back on the throttle and throws it on home. You can just see, though, the opportunity is there, and so he was, I think that was almost a, hey, on the off chance I'm going to tap you, just a heads up, help me make the corner sort of dive. But you know what? When you have that opportunity, you take it.
All the drivers coming across the start and finish line, as we'll take a quick look at the unofficial race results. Christian Challenger takes the checker flag by 48 seconds, his second straight Bathurst 500, his 13th career Major Series victory. Riley Thompson comes away with the podium in 3rd position for Total Downforce Racing, with Bombshell Motorsports in 4th with Kirk Crum. Travis Henderson came away 5th with Yunis Putuklis in 6th position. Last car in the lead lap was Bombshell's Marcus Niskanen. First driver lap down was Adam Fassi-Ponce, with Diego Jimenez Hormilia in 9th, and Ido Vilo rounds out the top 10 today, Cam.
Yeah, and then it just keeps on going. Joshua Wolf, a good recovery drive. He comes home in the 11th position for Torque Free. Grizzly coming home in the 12th position with David Baker. And as the list keeps on going, you do have Bavorsky finishing ahead of Peter Vostrel. Mike Gaunt, he had damage pretty much the entire race, and he still came home in the light 18th position. So good for him. And as it keeps on going, we did have a couple of DNFs, including Tim Claessens, Adam Banfield, Stefan Wang, and Jared Morgan.
Amongst the air drivers towards the back, Gabriel Ruse, that was towards the front, standing one of the Legends drivers, Patrick Neist on down there. Enrico Leinhardt, a rough race, 75 laps down at the end. Sam Watley only making it a few laps around, about 5 or so, is the last car on track. 35 drivers entered this year's edition of the Bathurst 500 for the European split. And in the end, Christian Challenger dominated them all. Post-race coverage coming up next. We'll take a quick break. You're watching RaceBot TV and the iRacing Esports Network for Mount Panorama Circuit. Welcome back, everyone, to the Mount Panorama Circuit for today's coverage of the Bathurst 500 for the Major Series European Split on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. It was an exciting race today with two drivers that were looking to be the class of the field. But in the end, Christian Challenger dominated his way to the checker flag after a mistake by Tim Claessens. It's his 7th victory on the campaign in 2019, his 13th career Major Series victory. A strong run for him today, coming up over top Philip Lake and Riley Thompson. What was an entertaining race today, Cam?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had a great duel between Tim Claessens and Christian Challenger that probably would have gone on all race long if it wasn't for a mid-race incident. Then we had quite a couple of good little bounce all throughout this great circuit. And I think the big thing is a majority of the cars finished. Everyone, I think, is going to be pretty happy with that. It's a great challenge, and I think most of the drivers here are going to be happy with the fact that they were able to come home in the car at all.
Don't forget, fans, though, it's the second to last race was today. The last race on the season is November the 3rd at Interlagos. You talked about it a little bit. 71 laps for the Brazilian Grand Prix. And what's expected to be a challenging race to end off the campaign here. Cam, your thoughts heading into the final race of 2019?
They got to dust off the old F1 car, and they got to take that car out there and then run Interlagos, which is a very difficult open-wheel track, but is very entertaining. It's going to be rough, it's going to be tough, and hopefully everyone will have a decent race there in Brazil, because Interlagos is a track that I'm a pretty big fan of, and I mean, having some of the fastest open-wheel cars racing on it, you can never go wrong with that.
Yes, indeed. And at this point, it was a strong campaign again for Christian Challenger with one race to go already. It's basically securing that championship already with about 1,200 plus points unofficially entering today and growing that lead today. Post-race coverage continues here on iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV. One of the drivers that is having a strong campaign for the sportsman's class came away with 8 today. Let's see if we can talk with Adam Faciponti with his car, the 84 car, the first car lap down, but a strong run overall to come in with the 8th position. Adam, how do you feel about your top 8?
Really good. For once, I had a race where I didn't really make any silly mistakes. Really tough race. Diego and a couple other guys, were pretty close to me most of the race, so I really had to stay on my game, even though we didn't have like a really close battle. But man, it's just a really tough racetrack. Congrats to Christian on the win and the championship.
Yes, indeed. Right now, that points lead, astronomical, but of course, you're leading the sportsman's class. I'm going to ask you about that in a moment or so, but one thing I do want to ask about the race today. The track temp was extraordinarily hot, especially towards the end. We started in the high 90s at the end of the warm-up session. We finished at 131 degrees. How tough was it to adjust as that grip level went down and down and down a hill all the way to the end?
It was tough for sure, but to be honest, I was kind of hoping it would get hot. We did, unorthodox, we developed our setup for really hot temperatures, and we have a really good long-run setup. It handles well even in the hot weather. I mean, handles well is a relative term when it gets that hot, but yeah, I was hoping it would get hot. The track temp I was testing in was like 136, so yeah, it was about where I expected. And I was kind of glad it got hot because, like I said, we had a really good hot track car.
Now, I want to ask you this about the sportsman's class standings. Of course, you're in the lead right now. You came into today with 549 points, able to grow that now with a lot of your competitors in those standings having rough races here. Coming into the final race of the season, how would you describe your overall 2019 campaign to essentially be in a great position to come away with that sportsman class championship?
The whole 2019's been just incredible. My goal at the beginning of the season was just to finish every race because last year I had a couple of DNFs. And so far, cross my fingers, I'm doing that. So I got one more race. Colin Marzoff, he really came on strong in the middle of the season. He had some good runs at Spa, and he was running second at Eldora at one point while I was back in the pack. and he actually got wrecked by a lap car. So I mean, if not for he had a couple races with some bad luck. It might be a lot closer. But yeah, I mean, I just give all credit to the team. The team's done a tremendous job helping me develop as a driver. And if I could hold on and collect that Sportsman's Championship, it'd be by far my biggest accomplishment on iRacing.
To secure that, you have the Brazilian Grand Prix coming up. That is the last race on the schedule for the Major Series in 2019. Your thoughts as we go to the open wheel cars for 71 laps at Interlagos?
After this race, it might seem kind of easy. And I don't know, the F1 car, I've always kind of liked it. I do okay in it. I don't dread driving it or anything like that. Interlagos is kind of a question mark for me because I think I've only raced there once. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a lot shorter race than this one and a little bit easier on the body. This race was brutal.
Is there anyone you want to thank real quick before we let you go here today?
Yeah, just everybody on the team, in particular, Travis and Steve do a tremendous job helping me out in particular, and they help everybody out. And Kevin and I have got to be pretty good friends, and we communicate all the time with what we're doing. And I mean, just the whole team though. The whole team contributes. And I'd also like to thank my girlfriend Christine. She shows a tremendous amount of patience with all the time it takes to put into this, and I really appreciate it.
Congratulations on the strong finish today, Adam.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Adam Fassiponti coming away with an 8th place finish today. Standing by with Joshua Wolf now is Cam Walt. Cam, I'll send it over to you.
I'm here next to the 48 machine, and Joshua.
Yes.
What happened?
I had an internet issue. I think it's something me and iRacing are gonna have to figure out what's going on because had it happen the other day when I was in a practice session, and then yesterday I ran 3 hours, no problem, and then all of a sudden today got kicked out again. So got to figure out what's going on, and yet again another race here at Bathurst that internet issues just kind of took away a really good finish for me.
Well, that it did, but rather than, say, just him hawing and getting in a fist fight with a router, which I strongly suggest not doing because it's an inanimate object and doesn't have any feelings, you got back in the car, you got back out on the track, you were down early. I think you were like one of the first cars a lap down, and you ended up finishing 11th. I mean, as far as a recovery drive goes, that's pretty strong.
Yeah, I had a fast car. Showed it kind of in the warm-up before the race, and in qualifying this week, I just kind of figured out how to get around this track and have a pretty decent car, and I just had to kind of sit down and try and not make as many mistakes like I did last year when I had the internet issues, and I definitely did a little bit better at that. Still had plenty of them, but just having a fast car, I was able to kind of pick them off one by one and make my way towards the front.
Yeah, and that you did. And what do you think of the V8 supercars? Is that a car that you'd like to run more often? I know it's always kind of it's weird. Out of all the cars that we have here in the service, it's like the V8 supercar. It's basically the Australian NASCAR. It runs always on the road courses, of course, but it's not necessarily what you would consider a road skills car. You really need to be good with stock car running to really handle these 4-door sedans around, and so people either love them or hate them, and I'm not sure which part of that argument you're on.
I don't mind them. Kind of growing up, I was more of an oval guy. Growing up watching NASCAR, but I did a lot of racing and driving the Cup car around Watkins Glen because I grew up near there. So definitely having the kind of that background, I don't have as much of a problem with this car. So me running at other tracks other than Bathurst, I don't really do that. But when we come here, either for the iRacing 1000 or the Majors race, I seem to do pretty well with it. So
We're going to Interlagos next in the FW31, kind of dusting off the old Formula car. That seems to be growing in popularity. No DRS, none of that. And so what do you think? How are you going to be doing at Interlagos sitting in the FW31? You're going to be there?
Yes, I do plan on being there. How we're going to do, I'm not 100% sure. We don't normally run a whole lot of the F1 cars, so might have to lean on my team to see if they got any knowledge on it, or just put in a lot of practice laps trying to figure out. I have had a lot of laps around Interlagos, so I don't think trying to figure out the track is going to be as difficult as just trying to figure out how to get speed out of that car.
Yeah, and well, speaking of your team, anyone you'd like to give a thanks to before we let you go?
Give a shout out to our sponsors. We got Infinity Decals and TeamSpeak as our sponsors on the Torque Freak cars. So shout out to them, and thank you guys for a great broadcast.
Well, of course, we try, and I mean, all things considered, you can't control the internet thing, but you know what? An absolutely fantastic recovery drive. I mean, I would consider that kind of it's not a win, but you know what I mean, though. All things considered, you're one of the best out of all the cars that had issues and everything like that. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks in Brazil.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Well, that's Joshua Wolf, driver of the number 48 Torque Freak Racing machine. And, Justin, just to kick back to you, I mean, I think that we had a really exciting race. We had changing conditions. We had, like, the car changed over the course of the entire race, and we had some fantastic racing to boot.
Indeed, and it was some great racing, especially up at the front of that first half of the race. But in the end, Christian Challenger was the one who came away with win number 7 on the campaign in his 13th start of the year, his 13th career Majors Series victory. One more round to go in the 2019 season for the European split. As mentioned, that will be in early November for the Brazilian Grand Prix. You can see that on the iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV. But the Major Series racing action continues tonight. On the Global Sim Racing channel, the Americas split starts at about 7 o'clock Eastern Time. But it's time to say goodbye for now for the European drivers for the Bathurst 500. Glad to have you with us for Paul Smith, for Cam Walsh, for our camera operations today. I'm Justin Prince saying so long, have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving for our Canadian viewers today. We'll see you next time for the final round of the 2019 Major Series European Split season.